Call to order, Town of Fairfield Zoning Board of Appeals, May 4, 2023. The first items we have for executive session, approval of minutes for Thursday, April 6, 2023. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Katie got that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion? All right, hearing none, bring it to a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? None. Motion carries. Number 2 is approval of secretary's fees. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Jane
Thank you, Jane. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, bring it to a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. We'll reconvene the working session after we complete our public hearing today. Just a reminder, items that are not going forward are continued docket number 9 and 10, which is 1001 and 1003 South Pine Creek Road, and regular docket number 5, 680 Old Academy Road. That is going to be continued. The South Pine Creek Road applications have been withdrawn. Give us another minute, and I'll open up the public hearing. Get started. Call to order, Fairfield Zoning Board of Appeals, public hearing, May 4, 2023. When I call a matter at that time, the applicant can come up to the podium and obviously wait for you to finish making the call, and then you can begin your presentation. During your presentation, and I emphasize that as I have every time I've made this call for the last 8 years, that is the only time for you to come up, present us items you want us to consider. It's that time for you to give, not while I'm talking, not while I'm trying to make the call, because it can interfere, and there's a reason for that, and you'll find that out as to one of my second points. After the person that's going to be presenting, whether it's the owner or the agent, the application, we may have some questions for you. Do your best. They're not to be trick questions. It's just for questions from this board, wanting to know a little bit more information than what we've already received and reviewed, and a little bit more information from us reviewing and looking at the property. So it's not here to trick you. Just do your best to answer those questions. After questions, if there are any, sometimes they're not, after questions, I'll then invite anyone who wants to speak in favor of the application to come forward. After that, if there's anyone that speaks in favor, I will then open up the talk to anyone that opposes that application, and I will also make sure that the people are signing in remotely have an opportunity. Just make sure you raise your hand or in the remote sign in, or you let us know some way, just so I can make sure that you're heard. I take them in a certain order. I take those in favor, and then I take anyone who opposes. If there is any opposition, the applicant or his or her agent will then be afforded an opportunity to address those comments in opposition. It's that time, it's a rebuttal time for you to address the comments in opposition. It's not a time for you to restate your application, just to address the comments that are opposing your particular application. Second point, why I emphasize certain things. The meeting is being recorded so we can have a record, and that's required by our state law to have a record. So it's important that we be able to understand that tape. So therefore, it's important that no one interrupts one another, especially someone here sitting up at this table who's asking questions and trying to do this job to understand the applications and all the comments that are coming from the public if they want to speak. Anyone who does come forward, come up to the microphone, or if you're remote, give us your name and address before you begin. It's especially important so the record's clear so we know who's talking. I welcome the comments if anyone's interested. I want to be very clear about that. Anyone who has any comments, whether you're in favor or opposed to it, I welcome those. However, keep in mind what the function of this board is. Zoning Board of Appeals, it is people coming here asking for variance or adjustment of our town regulations. It's not a time for other things that don't come before this board. They're looking for some type of forgiveness from that particular regulation as to that particular piece of property, okay? So try to keep that in mind. That may seem technical, but do your best to keep that in mind when you're making comments as to why you think it should be approved or granted, or why you think it should be denied. So just keep that in mind. If you're too far off the point, I reserve my right as chairman to restrict your comments at any time. And I said we're going to reconvene our working session. That's when we vote. There's going to be 5 members of this board that vote on each application that does go forward today. In order for that application to be granted, you need a supermajority. You need 4 of the commissioners to vote in favor of that particular application. If it's a regular simple majority, that application is denied. So you need at least a 4-to-1 vote in favor of your application. I invite anyone who's interested to stay on the line and listen. We allow people to listen to our discussion. I think it's very important for people to hear the discussion, especially if it's your application, but also if you have comments, whether you're in favor or against it. You're going to hear some discussion and may shed some light as to why the board voted the way they did, and I think it's beneficial. However, no penalty upon you if you cannot stay. You can always call the zoning department tomorrow to find out what was decided, but I think it's beneficial to the public and obviously to the applicant to stay if you can. Lastly, if an application for a waiver of a zoning regulations is granted, it will not be valid until it's recorded on the land records. In order to have that done, you must bring or send a check to the town, the zoning department, made out to the town of Fairfield in the amount of $60, so it can be proper recording of the notice. Any waiver which involves construction, whether it's a new dwelling, it's an addition or an alteration of that building, requires an as-built before there can be an issuance of certificate of zoning compliance and a certificate of occupancy. And I just see we have a couple of people that came in a little bit late. I'll just remind people that we have a couple matters that are not, or 3 matters that are not going forward. It's number 9 and 10 on our continued docket, which is 1001 South Pine Creek, 1003 South Pine Creek. Those 2 applications have been withdrawn. And number 5, 680 Old Academy Road, that has been continued to our June calendar, so no business on those items today. I'll now call to go forward. Let me organize myself first. Continued docket number 5, 2268 Fairfield Beach Road, map 234, parcel 90. Petition of 2268 Fairfield Beach Road, LLC, for a variance of zoning regulations, section 11.13, to reduce the street line setback from the center line of Fairfield Beach Road from 25 feet, currently 7.9 feet, proposing 10.2 feet to the roof overhang and 15.7 feet to the dwelling. Permission to construct a 2-story FEMA-compliant single-family dwelling with a CAM application, premises BD zone. Mr. Russo, you presenting this?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Chris Russo, with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield, Connecticut, here on behalf of the applicant for this variance request. But in all honesty, it's really a request to reduce nonconformities that exist on the site. And I think when I go through this, you'll see that that's really what's happening here. So the proposal is there is an existing non-compliant, FEMA non-compliant, and also non-conforming dwelling, single-family dwelling on the property. So the proposal is to demolish that building, which right now is non-conforming as to the setback that we are requesting a variance from. It's currently at 7.9. It's a little tough to see. I'll just draw a red line. That is where the existing street line setback is for that single-family dwelling. So we would be removing that nonconformity and pushing the new house back, as the chair read on the call, 10.2 feet to a roof overhang, and then 15.7, so almost double the setback that this property currently has. Just to orient you on the, where the site is, this is the portion of Fairfield Beach Road that's private. It is past the cul-de-sac. We've all been down Fairfield Beach Road. At the very end, there's a cul-de-sac. And beyond that is a private portion of Fairfield Beach Road, and this house is it's a little bit farther down that private section of the road. Almost all the dwellings, I would say all the dwellings, are non-conforming as to street line setback. And all of them are also located on this northern side of Fairfield Beach Road. There's no structures to the south of Fairfield Beach Road. The site itself, as you know, the minimum lot area in the BD zone is 9,375 square feet. And this site is non-conforming, it's 8,834. But that's almost a little bit deceiving because it would lead you to believe that there was a much more considerable area to build on this site. But the truth is that you cannot build on the southern side. So this whole, I keep using this marker, but this whole portion cannot be built on. And then on top of it, you have the setback to Pine Creek as well, and you have the road. So even though it's almost a 9,000 square foot site, there really is very limited area to build on these properties, and really all these properties that are along this section of Fairfield Beach Road. The site's located in a B flood zone. It is, susceptible to wave action. I've been down there post-Sandy. This is down the part of Fairfield Beach Road that witnessed a lot of destruction. So these non-compliant, non-FEMA compliant properties are very susceptible. So just the conversion alone, and I think that was echoed in the CAM comments for this property, just converting this to a FEMA compliant dwelling is a huge improvement to this property. So the proposal again is to construct a modest two-story dwelling that will be set back further from the Fairfield Beach Road than the current dwelling. As you can see, here's that roof overhang, because we called out two different setbacks. The roof overhang is a little bit closer to the road, but the main portion of the dwelling is almost double the existing setback. The other thing that, when I was talking about how, not only are we reducing the nonconformity for street line setback, but we're also having a significant reduction in coverage. And I've been before you on Fairfield Beach Road properties a lot. I know you've heard dozens of Fairfield Beach Road applications. And usually when those applications come before you, those applicants hold on to the pre-existing non-conforming building coverage with everything they have. So if something has, it's 20% it's 20% in the zone or whatever's pre-existing. So if somebody has a 35.1% pre-existing non-conforming building coverage, they usually come back to you with a new plan that has 35.1%. They don't give up any of it. On this application, we are going down from, I have it here, from 39.6% to 28%. So we're reducing the overall coverage on this site by 11.6%, which I think of all the ones I've done is probably the most dramatic reduction in coverage that I've seen for a Fairfield Beach Road application. That once they actually build this dwelling, that will be gone forever. The coverage on this site going forward will be 28%. And you would not be able to do on any type of redevelopment or addition, you would not be able to go more than 28% without a variance. So I think that's a significant reduction in nonconformity, and a reduction of a nonconformity like that can serve as its own separate basis for the granting of a variance. The other big improvement, if you drove by this site, I have pictures, I'm not connecting, I was gonna put it up there on the WebEx, but I'm not connecting, which is probably the Walgreens photo department messing with me, because I usually have hard pictures to show you. But if you've been to the site, one of the things you probably noticed was there's a large concrete patio here, completely impervious. That is getting completely removed. So it's also not compliant with the flood regulation. So the removal of that, I've seen waves do amazing things to concrete and move them amazing amounts of distances down at the end of Fairfield Beach Road. So having that patio removed is another tremendous improvement, just not for the site, but also for all the neighbors, that patio could be a threat to. So in whole, we feel it's a tremendous improvement to this site. Again, it's a variance request, but the truth of the matter is we are moving back from where the existing dwelling is currently. So it's reducing a nonconformity that exists on the site, which is zone basis for granting a variance. We're making it FEMA compliant, and we are having a dramatic reduction in coverage, so making this site much more conforming, which again can service its own basis for the granting of a variance. The hardship on top of those, on those separate bases, on top of that, the hardship with these sites, again, is there is so little building area because you cannot, even though it's an 800 square foot site, you can't build on this side. You can't get closer to Long Island Sound than a current dwelling is under your regulations. So we couldn't go closer than what is the 7.9 feet. So all this area is out for building. Plus we have the setback to concrete, because this is a lot that spans both ends of the peninsula there. And for those reasons, we have a very limited building area to work with. I will point out, just because we kind of squished this building in a tighter area, we did not expand out, so we are meeting the side setbacks as well. And the height and all those other setback requirements we are meeting. We are not any closer to Pine Creek than the reg allowed. We're not any closer to the side property line than the reg allowed. And that's basically it, pretty straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Rich. Does the board have any questions?
Yes.
Yes, Jane, go ahead.
Hi, just clarify for me, the allowable coverage is 20%?
20% or whatever's pre-existing from when the zone was created. When they created the BD zone, a lot of properties off Fairfield Beach Road were non-conforming as to coverage.
Okay.
So the regs allow either 20% or whatever your coverage was. So if you were 40%, you can go back to 40%.
Okay. So you don't need a separate variance for that particular thing? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
And again, Commissioner, they'll lose, so that will be lost now. Right now, it's 39.6%. They could not go back to 39.6. It'll now be 28. Anything 29% would require a variance in the future.
Since there's no other questions, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Here or signing in remotely? All right. No one over there. All right. Thank you, Attorney Russ. We're going to close the hearing on 2268 Fairfield Beach Road. And remember, we're taking it out of order too. Chris. So, number 9 on the continued docket, 1001 South Pine Creek Road has been withdrawn. Number 10 on the continued docket, 1003 South Pine Creek Road has been withdrawn. General docket said we're going a little out of order, and I appreciate Attorney Russo allowing that, even though he never said it was okay, but I appreciate him allowing it anyway. Number 4, 600 Jennings Road, map 79, parcel 732, petition of Town of Fairfield for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4.3, to reduce 2 street line setbacks for an accessory structure from 30 feet, proposing 12 feet and 18 feet. Permission to construct an accessory structure for a 2,000-gallon fuel tank, premises B-Zone, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. Can I use the diesel? Did you say that?
He didn't say that, but you can use it. Well.
He gave me a thumbs up. All right, Chairman and members of the Board, good afternoon, nice to meet you. This is my first appearance in front of the Board. My name is Raymond Smith. I'm one of the senior civil engineers here in town. I'm here today on behalf of the town to request a reduction for 2 street line setbacks from section 5.2.4.3 for accessory structure. Currently, the hardship the town's facing is 3 street setbacks. We're proposing a setback reduction from 30 feet to 12 and 18 feet. The town has removed the existing underground storage tank and is currently renting a refueling station. If granted, this will allow for the installation of a permanent above-ground 2,000-gallon refueling station. The only other location that's feasible on site is where the playground is over here, but since it's a playground, due to safety, we do not want to do that. That's pretty much it. Here's the zoomed in where the concrete pad's going to be. And I do have a handout for you guys, just photos of what the storage tanks look like, the above ground ones.
All right, thank you. Mr. Smith, the board have any questions for Mr. Smith? Go ahead, Jane.
Hi. Why do you go from an underground to an above ground?
Well, the town in general is getting rid of the undergrounds, and there's a lot of environmental concerns with that. They have a tendency to leak, causing diesel fuels that leak within the groundwater table. And I believe that there's an accident that happened on site, which their old tank was then removed, and that's why we're now kind of using this as a precursor to update it to this new, better design.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, hearing no other questions, anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application, 600 Jennings Road? Is there anyone that opposes the application? Hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing on 600 Jennings Road. Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. All right, back to the beginning of the regular docket. First item is number 1, just for the record. I'll make the call as chairman, but I'm recusing myself, and to run the hearing after I make the call, Vice Chairman, Mr. Keegan's going to chair this particular application, and Harold is going to be sitting for me on this particular application, so he'll be involved in the discussion and voting during our working session. So number 1, 920 Old Post Road, map 182, parcel 604A is an apple. Petition of David Montani for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet, proposing 18 feet. Permission to construct a new 2.5-story single-family dwelling, premises A zone. Attorney Russo, go ahead.
Chair, thank you for the breather. Chris Russo with Russo Rizio LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield, Connecticut, here on behalf of the Montanis for this property at 920 Old Post Road. As Chair has stated, this property is located within the Residence A district. We are looking for a minor variance here just for this portion of the single-family dwelling. The rest of the single-family dwelling went before the Historic District Commission. It received the necessary approvals that it needs to move forward with this design. The site now, if you drove by it, you might have a tough time seeing it because there's a row of trees that are evergreens that are in front of it that kind of block your view of the site. But it's currently vacant. It does have an old basketball court that actually spans over both these properties, that will obviously be removed. And then there's a small shed, that's in the back that will also be removed. This property is the result of a compliant subdivision with, from the neighboring property. That borders kind of this portion of Old Post Road and then the other portion that runs east-west of Old Post Road. But it is completely compliant, that lot, this lot. It is, over on lot area and, it meets the minimum square and it's over on lot frontage. So it is a, compliant lot. The issue with it, which is kind of obvious from looking at it, is it has a, very odd shape with this L shape that really reduces the amount of building area. So if you can see, it might be a little tough to see from there, but on this side right here, this is only 15 feet deep because you have the 30-foot setback from Old Post Road that's required under the regulations, and then a 30-foot setback, because this is a rear setback, to this line. It's really this jut into the property that causes a lot of problems in reducing the building area of the site. This portion right here is also very narrow. So this whole length here is extremely narrow. So it's a difficult site to work with. The architect on this, Brian St. Pierre, who I believe is on the call, did a tremendous job in working in these tight confines to come up with a design, one that fits the site, but also in meeting all the requirements of the historic district. We went repeatedly to the historic district with tweaks, and I'll show you the design. You know, working on the design of this single-family dwelling. So the proposal is for single-family dwelling. There will be an access drive here on the northern portion of the site that will access a detached garage. It makes sense to locate it there because detached accessory structures have less setback. So because this is such a narrow portion, this would be where to stick a detached structure like this. And this is the main dwelling. And really, he's done an incredible job in trying to fit this dwelling within this. Because if you could see the building setback line, it goes like that and then comes down from here. So he's managed to fit this dwelling in that small box. What we're asking to do is for a very small setback variance to be able to just extend this wall, but because of the nature of it, it actually then runs into the rear setback, which causes the variance. So all he's doing is looking to extend that wall a little further to give them a little more area here. So let me show on the floor plan, so it might make a little bit more sense. So the area that we're discussing on the first floor is here in the area of the family room, and then on the second floor would be an area for a laundry room. And without it, the dwelling almost has, it looks like a staircase because he's trying so hard to be able to fit within the setback line. So it comes here, it turns, it comes here, it turns, it comes here, it turns, it comes here, to try to fit in with the setback. So the request here is to be able to actually get a substantive wall here on this side extending out. The addition itself is only 6.5 feet wide by 12 feet deep. So a very minimal addition to this dwelling. This is the view of it. This is the rendering of the front of the dwelling. Again, with an incredible amount of feedback from the HDC, a lot of revisions in trying to meet their requirements and what they were looking for, and we finally received that approval. I can hand out that approval. I highlighted the approval on the, from the minutes of the HDC from November 10th. I highlighted that approval. This variance also has very minimal impact because it's not visible from Old Post Road. It's really tucked in here. So really, the only people who can see it from their houses or dwellings are the neighbors here to the south, and then over back here on West Morgan. And my client met with those neighbors, so I have two things to hand out to you. First being a map, an overhead map where you can see the property overhead, but then I also highlighted all the neighbors who signed a petition in support of this application. One more. So as you can see, and there's a couple area, neighbors that are beyond this area, but I focused that supported the position. But, just for this map, just to show, the, neighbors at 77 West Morgan, 47 West Morgan, which could have a view of that addition, from the back of their house. And then probably the two properties where it would be most visible, 842 Old Post Road and 880 Old Post Road also signed this petition in favor. So anybody who might be impacted by this variance because of the reduced setback has signed in support of it. Again, it's a very minimal variance to help us work with a site that's very difficult. The hardship being it is a compliant lot, but it is a extremely uniquely shaped lot, a very challenged lot with regards to setbacks to work in, and with a addition that we feel is completely in character with the surrounding neighborhood. And again, the design of the dwelling has been approved by the Historic District Commission. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Can we hear from people that are in favor of this application? Is there anybody opposed?
Yep. Can I speak?
Yep. Please state your name.
Excuse me.
Thank you. I'm Richard Cunningham. A couple of interesting comments from Attorney Russo, I believe. The first one is in reference to this application having been approved by the Historic District Commission. It has not as it currently stands. The second thing is he kind of mentioned neighbors had bandied together to sign a petition. Hui. I own this property on this side. I would also have a view of this petition. I'm wholly against this. You may be aware this is probably the most contentious item of development in Fairfield. This went through multiple rounds last year, actually in the year before with the Historic District Commission. It's a very historically significant part of Fairfield. It's an irregular shaped lot, an upside down flag shaped lot that was carved out of the back garden of another property in an attempt for invasive development. The developers then put together plans which were taken through zoning to the absolute limit of zoning regulations, literally to the square inch, to design a property that was a bizarre kind of triangular shape that you kind of see here. It doesn't even make sense because it wasn't supposed to be like that. It then went in front of the Historic District Committee. More than 40 neighbors signed petitions against this to the Historic District Committee. This morning I sent you that petition, and along with the letter which came from the president of the Old Post Road Area Association. And to be candid, from a perspective of due course, I'm really, really disappointed in this zoning board of appeals. The president sent from the Old Post Road Area Association an email on behalf of the entire neighborhood asking you to table this application because of the error in the filing, which meant that none of the neighbors that actually impacted by this application were able to see it until this morning. A number of those neighbors are still kind of in contact with me at the moment. I've only just had time to review the plans and are frankly feeling kind of gypped that they haven't had the opportunity to come here and express their position. And I would ask you to withdraw this application now. So the application as it stands is already maxing out the square footprint. We have fundamental issues raised by the Old Post Road Area Association, more than 40 neighbors, and Fair Plan Connecticut, who you should have also received a letter from. The issues raised are simply that this building doesn't fit in this location. It's been carved out of the back garden of another property. It's been wedged in. It has a very significant streetscape impact in a highly historic area. Neighbors have expressed their issues around the mass and the scale and the streetscape impact and of the property. And to be candid, this is only going to make it worse. I think earlier on there was a reference about asking for forgiveness. There is no hardship here. This was carved out by design in this irregular shape. The developer bought the property knowing exactly what they were buying. There's absolutely no hardship here. There's no need to approve this. There's no need to take already a property which has an excessive footprint and does not fit in this area and making it even larger. So with that, thank you very much. Richard Cunningham, 952 Old Post Road.
Are we allowed to ask
on
a
this
question?
side.
Are we allowed to ask a question?
You ask the chair.
Chairman, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Sure.
question for you.
Yeah.
Number one, Attorney Russo stated and gave us this document saying that this was approved by the Historic Commission?
Not with the addition, no. The layout was, but certainly not with this change that they're envisaging now. To my understanding, this would have to go back to the Historic District Commission after this point for reapproval for this change.
Does the Historic District govern areas you can't see from the street line?
Mass and scale, yes, and this would be a mass issue.
But they're not changing the front, they're not changing the front, they're just changing the back.
But their purview still is regarding mass and scale, so.
And then the other question is, you said you only learned of this zoning appeal this morning?
I understand there was an issue with the file, online, and that, whereas I think the appeal docket was put up, the actual plans behind, the link didn't work and it pulled up something on Beach Road.
Okay.
And the president, Henry Backey of the Old Post Road Area Association, sent out a number of emails asking for this to be withdrawn so that neighbors could have the chance to actually review the plans. And I actually sent that to both the president and the vice president today. I forwarded that asking them also to withdraw this in order to give neighbors a chance to respond, and I got nothing back, and this was tabled regardless.
But all these, even regardless if it didn't work online, all these plans would have been available at Town Hall, right? Correct?
Correct.
It's unusual that this is a last-minute thing. But that answers it, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else in opposition?
Check if there's someone or not.
Anybody in internet land in opposition? No? Yeah,
May
no?
I
Yeah,
go back and ask a question?
sure.
Chris?
Yeah.
Me?
Well,
You
he,
just-
yeah,
Okay.
He's gonna speak right now.
right.
So
He's gonna address the
Okay.
I can
opposition.
start with your question now.
Yep.
Explain the hardship, please.
The hardship is the shape of the lot, and particularly the indent here, that imposes a rear setback, not just here, but then also here. It impacts, the developable area of the site. And just to respond to a few of the comments, one regarding the notice issue. The requirements to this board for notice are that you say where the, meeting is, what date, time it is, and the nature of the variance being requested, which were all things, that were done. I understand that there was a glitch with the computer system as far as accessing. That's a convenience that the town provides with, as far as being able to access plans from online. But this application was fully available, in the town, and notices were sent out timely to all the residents. In addition, it's my understanding, from having talked to my client, that he spoke with, I believe it's Mr. Cunningham's wife, but another owner of, that property right here to our north, 952 Old Post Road. That was last Wednesday. Plus there was the notice, that was published in the paper and the notice that was mailed. And we're just hearing about these objections, today. You know, he said that the neighbors who were actually impacted by the application were not notified. And I would just point to this map, which I think it's hard to say that the people that you have signed on that petition at 880, 842, and 47 wouldn't be the most impacted, by this, addition. The other thing with regards to, you know, getting back to the lot itself, this lot is over on lot area, and it has the minimum square, and it is over on lot frontage. So it is just as compliant a lot in this zone as any. I mean, it is compliant. There's, you know, I'm not saying that there aren't bigger lots, but this, in the view of the regulations, this lot is fully compliant. And the owner, the previous owner of 880, who decided to split this lot, that was permitted by the regulations. With regards to the historic design, and I thought I stated this clearly the first time, but I'll restate it again. The single-family dwelling that you see on the rendering was approved by the Historic District Commission. I think Commissioner O'Grady, you stated it right. This addition does not need a approval from the HDC because it is not in view of the public street. So our client, in working and developing those plans, a lot of focus was paid during the Historic District Commission to this front area and getting this front area, you know, have the Historic District be comfortable in improving the dwelling. When we went into building plans and we started looking closer at the floor plan, we felt that this was an appropriate addition and reasonable addition, given the constraints of the property, to make it more of a livable area. And I believe those are the only comments. But yeah, we think it's an extremely reasonable addition for a lot that's hardship is that it is irregularly shaped and has significant setbacks that impede the buildable area. Oh, and the other thing I just want to point out, he talked about how this is an overbuild of this property. Just from a coverage point of view, the permitted coverage in the zone is 20%, we're 18.8, so we're under. But floor area allows 40% in this zone, and this is 29.7%. So this is well under the permitted coverage, and particularly the permitted floor area in this zone. It is not an overbuilt of the site. It's a very modest house. It will be one of the smaller dwellings on the section of Old Post Road. And it is a road that has a lot of issues with setback, including Mr. Cunningham's, because he has a historic house. It's right up against the road. So there's a lot of properties on this section that are not conforming at the setback. So we don't feel that this is any negative impact on the neighbors. Any neighbors that it would negatively impact have supported this application for what is a reasonable request for this property.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman? In summary, would you say that the main request for this variance is to allow for that small rectangle because that is what's impeding?
That's what's impeded by the setback. Yes.
By the setback. And secondly,
It is only this section. That is all we need a variance for.
and as you stated, the Historic Commission, has approved for this addition?
They approved for the construction of a single-family dwelling. We then brought these plans to the zoning department, with this addition on it, and asked if there would be any need for a further, review or approval from the Historic District Commission, and they said no. The massing and the scale has to do with how it looks from the public road. It all has to do with the view to the public from the public road, not what's located in the middle of the back of the dwelling. We didn't, frankly, during the Historic District Commission meetings, we barely, I don't think we ever talked about the back of the site.
Jane?
Back to the questions.
Hi.
Yes.
Did the same entity who carved out that shape is now developing the
No.
property?
My client bought that property, it was a separated lot.
That's the end of the hearing for, 920 Old Post Road.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I hit it twice. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Can you hand that over to me? Number 2 on our regular docket, 155 Turney Road, map 130, parcel 85. Petition of Jessica Nuttall for variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase lot coverage from 20%, currently 19.2%, proposing 23.61%. Permission to construct a rear one-story addition and deck, premises A zone. Attorney Fallon, this is you. Go ahead.
It is. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here today. I'm a lawyer in Fairfield at 53 Sherman Street. I'm here to represent the property owner, Jessica Nuttall, who's seated right there, and her mom is here as well, from Germany, as I'll elaborate on in the course of my remarks. The property is located at 155 Turney Road, and Jessica's owned it since 2008, so she's been a resident for 14 years. It takes some time to look at the property here, because I think the underpinnings of the variance arise from the pre-existing non-conforming nature of the property. The property is a significantly undersized parcel in the Residence A zone. As you know, in the Residence A zone, under the current regulations, lot area minimum is 9,375. This lot is significantly undersized at 5,997 square feet. Jessica's parents, including her mom, do reside in Germany, and they're getting older, although you wouldn't know that until look at Mrs. Nuttall. Yeah, absolutely, I meant that too. But as they presently reside in Germany and as they are aging, this addition will provide a very small amount of additional space to help accommodate them when they come to visit Jessica, which they do now more often than they've had the opportunity to do in the past. In addition, the additional space will also provide Jessica and her parents some flexibility as they continue to grow older, at which time they've already discussed, Jessica will be on a caretaker role for her parents. So indeed, built into some of these plans, not so much what you see, but are widened doors and things that would help accommodate people aging in place. So the addition is very important, although it's quite small. This addition is only approximately 500 square feet. The floor plan will allow for a conversion of the existing sunroom area and a modest expansion in order to accommodate a new family room, a mudroom, and an enlarged kitchen. It is a one-story addition, and there is no increase in height. There is no second story involved. The proposed addition, as professionally designed by Edmund Clementi Architects, I think you will agree, is attractive. It harmonizes with the character of the neighborhood, represents a very significant aesthetic enhancement to the property, benefiting the surrounding neighborhood. So this is a small addition. The house itself is quite small. It's about 1,400 square feet. The addition is approximately 500 square feet to accommodate the renovations and addition that I referenced. Basically, the driving factor of which is allowing a more comfortable opportunity for Jessica's parents to visit and maybe at some point in time reside with her. In order to facilitate the variance, we're seeking, or the project, we're seeking a variance of section 5.2.5 to increase the permitted lot coverage from 19.2% to 23.61%. Those figures should be reviewed in the context of, again, a very exceedingly small, undersized lot of 5,997 square feet. I think it's important to emphasize that notwithstanding the nonconformity of the lot, the FAR, after the addition is completed, will only be 13.2%, well under the allowable 40% in the zone. And that is notwithstanding the fact that this lot is, as I said, 3,378 square feet smaller than the regs envision. That's important because I think it demonstrates the way Jessica approached this entire matter. She loves this neighborhood, she loves her neighbors, and she didn't want to do anything outlandish or in any way to be deemed appropriate. So although she would have loved to have more space, she determined that this provided some minimum opportunity to address the issues that I previously referenced. From a legal perspective, obviously you have to look at Connecticut General Statute 8-6. What is being proposed is not going to substantially affect the comprehensive zoning plan, and that there are elements relative to the factors involved in the case that establish legal hardship. As to the first part of the test, as you know, I always cite to you the Egan case that stands for the proposition that if the use to be allowed by the variance is consistent with other uses in the area and or is a permitted use in the zone, then that part of the test is satisfied. Clearly, there's not going to be any change in the use of the property, which will remain single-family residence as explicitly permitted, other than the variance for coverage, which I believe is reasonable and minor. No other variances are sought, and the proposed addition will comply with all other technical requirements of the regulations, including that, as I referenced, pertaining to floor area. There'll be no increase in height to the structure whatsoever. And as I said, I think the addition as designed by Mr. Clementi is quite attractive and certainly harmonizes with the character of the neighborhood. Jessica was very thorough in going to, as you'll see from these addresses, all of her surrounding neighbors. And we did receive the enthusiastic support from all of them, except unfortunately one neighbor who's represented here today, and I won't prevision her remarks. I'll wait until we are in rebuttal for that. So I think that engages the first part of the test. With regard to the hardship associated with this application, I cite material in my written documentation that talks about the fact that the controlling legal factor, I think, is the lot is a valid and legally protected pre-existing non-conforming lot as relates to lot area. Again, 9,375 square feet is the expectation in the zone. This lot, existing as a legally protected pre-existing non-conforming lot, has only 5,997 square feet. I believe the law supports finding that there's hardship in that case when you have a coverage regulation that envisions a lot area of almost 3,800 square feet larger than the lot in question. And the new construction that we are proposing here, it couldn't be maintained without a variance here on this very undersized lot. And I think the law supports a finding here based upon that legally protected status of this non-conforming lot, that in fact there is a basis for hardship here for granting the variance for coverage that is sought. So, by way of summary and subject to some final comments, I think the addition is understated, it's small, it's modest, it's attractive, and it harmonizes with the character of the neighborhood. The addition to her home living area is very small, which is currently very small, will afford that flexibility for her now and in the future, and her parents, to maintain the kind of relationship that they would want to maintain and to be there for her parents as need be as they age in place. I think legal hardship is established, and I think 8-6, the standards are met for the reasons I said, in that the application is not going to have any adverse impact on the comprehensive plan. And in fact, there is hardship based upon the pre-existing status of the lot. And again, I would emphasize, other than the coverage variance, we are complying in all respect with all other provisions of the regulations, including well under the FAR allowance of 40%. So be pleased to answer any questions you might have, and we'll look forward to addressing anticipated rebuttal comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon. Does the board have any questions? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application, 155 Turney Road? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition? Attorney Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross. I appear before you this afternoon on behalf of Joanne Minkley, who lives at 118 Cambridge Drive, which directly abuts the property that's the subject of this application. My client is elderly. She is extremely upset and anxious about this application. She elected not to join us for the meeting today because of that. Her in-laws bought this house in 1950. She's lived there for nearly 45 years, and she is concerned about this application because it's going to block part of the view and the light into her home, and also because the variance is not permitted under the law. There is no hardship here. There is nothing unique about this situation, and with all due respect to the applicant, the desire to expand a home or the desire to create an accommodation simply doesn't justify a variance. The lot is legally existing, and it is non-conforming, but it has great value. I've appeared before you in the past, and I've mentioned the E&F decision, which talks about variance being granted only where the economic value of the property is eliminated by virtue of the imposition of the zoning regulations. In other words, hardship exists when a lot can't be used for anything of economic value after the zoning regulations are adopted or amendments to the zoning regulations are adopted. Here, you do have a small lot, and there's lots of small lots in that neighborhood. There's nothing unique here. And there's a home, and the applicant has owned the home for some 15 years and has lived there. The applicant bought the home. It's 1,430 square feet. It has value. The applicant bought the house in 2008 for $665,000. The assessor values it, and the assessor is always conservative on values, but even the assessor values it at $523,000 as it sits there, but that's always conservative. But the point is, the imposition of the zoning regulations and any amendments to the zoning regulations didn't render the property valueless. So what you are faced with here, and I understand that there may be compelling reasons on a personal level where you'd want to expand your home, but even in the E&F decision, the court said that if personal considerations dictated the granting of variances, then there wouldn't be any point of having a ZBA because everyone could justify a variance. And I don't mean this to minimize the desires of the applicant or the good intentions of the applicant. But as you know, and as I've said many times before this board, your exercise of the jurisdiction vested in you, and the cases speak to the fact that they should be exercised very sparingly and only where there's hardship, unusual difficulty, and circumstances affecting the property. It is not affecting the individual. And in fact, one of the center points of E&F was addressing the Stillman decision, which was a decision of an elderly woman living in Bethel who got a variance because she was elderly and wanted to expand the ground floor of her home to get more living area and not have to go upstairs, and there were challenges with the lot and that sort of thing. And the variance was granted, but ultimately the Supreme Court found, again, that personal circumstances such as this, and they addressed this issue in E&F, which is a Fairfield decision involving 1460 Post Road, very specifically, they said, no, you cannot justify a variance on that basis. So I've also got to note that here, the applicant is looking to add a family room, a mudroom, and enlarge the kitchen. So I understand, and Attorney Fallon used the phrase, to allow flexibility, some necessary flexibility, but I'm just suggesting again, is clear, and it's not, again, personal hardship will not justify the granting of a variance. Economic loss, or the ability to develop a property the way you want, doesn't justify a variance. I've got to say, I see a lot of applications where you get petitions, and you are sitting in a capacity where you are using a legal standard. There's a legal standard for the exercise of your jurisdiction, and it's not about what's popular. It's not about what people's neighbors like that determines your ability to grant a variance. So I urge you to think about that, but, and also the size of the variance, whether you think it's big or you think that it's small or that it's not affecting other, aspects of the property, just doesn't count. And we learned that actually there's a case in Wilton, Weston, the Morikawa case, where the house ended up being 1 inch too tall. And the applicant went forward and built the house, and they went through an appellate process, and ultimately the Supreme Court said 1 inch doesn't matter if it's 1 inch over. And that house was rebuilt, and the roof was actually lowered. So close doesn't count. I guess the last thing is that the applicant cited cases in their statement, including Scobie versus Iderola, which is a 155 Connecticut 22. In that case, the Supreme Court overturned the variance. The variance was granted by the board, and it was overturned. Kelly versus Zoning Board of Appeals, 21 Con. 594. The appellate court overturned the variance that was granted. And Dolan versus Zoning Board of Appeals, 156 Connecticut 426. Again, the court overturned the variance. It said that the applicant did not prove adequate hardship. So there is just, and I understand that this board has the best of intentions, and I appreciate your time and I appreciate your service, but in this case, there is no legal basis to grant the relief that is requested. So I don't know if you have any questions for me. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Green.
But I urge you.
Questions for
to
Attorney
deny
Green?
this.
Thank you, Attorney Green.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this? It's 155 Turney Road. Okay, all right. Attorney Fallon, you get to address Attorney Green's comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a kind of a sad case in some respects, I will say, not particularly legally, I don't think relevant, but since Jessica moved into the property 14 years ago, she's been very close with Ms. Minkley. Close like grocery shopping for her, taking her for her COVID shots, taking her for a doctor's appointment. So it was disappointing, to say the least, with the support of all the other neighbors, that Ms. Minkley has the concerns that she has. But what comes down for you is the facts and the law. And so let's talk about facts, and then I'll talk about the law.
I've been training under Mr. Russo, and that's why he couldn't get his photographs today from Walgreens.
Yours are bigger.
Mine are bigger, yes, but we spare no expense. I'm gonna walk you through these so you know what you're looking at. So,
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, introducing photographs and exhibits in a rebuttal case, just no one objection to the record, please.
I think it's totally appropriate in light of the comments, and I guess the
To
objection.
address the comments.
Light and air wasn't the term that Ms. Minkley is concerned, but I respect Mr. Green's right to make his objection for this record. I assume the board will still look at the photographs. Okay, so light and air. First photograph is a series of photographs taken by my client at noontime. The stakes here in all these photographs were professionally staked by the surveyor, representing where this one-story addition would go. That is Ms. Minkley's house in the background. And you can see the fence that's there. You can see the unobstructed views that she currently has. You can see the unobstructed light and air that she has. So keep in mind that this is the footprint of the addition, and this is a one-story addition, and this is where the sun casts at exactly noontime. And so the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 photos in your package are all photos taken at different angles from noontime. And because, again, light and air, as Mr. Green said, are the concerns that Ms. Minkley has. And Ms. Minkley I'm not saying she's not sincere in those concerns, but I am saying she's significantly misguided. The second series of photographs were taken at 2:30, okay? Again, they depict the location of the addition, and they also depict where the sun casts at 2:30. And I asked you to review that in the context of Ms. Minkley's home and how it affects her light and air. It's interesting to me, if you look at this fence, when Jessica first moved in, as you all know, you could have run that fence up to 6 feet, but you'll note that fence isn't 6 feet, because again, in the spirit of being neighborly, she didn't want to inhibit the views and whatnot. So I wish Ms. Minkley was here and maybe to see these photographs. And it goes without saying, obviously Jessica tried very, very hard to engage her. Because I think if her concerns are light and air, then these photographs would help allay those concerns. And the other thing that strikes me as very peculiar is the things that could be done by way of natural vegetation that could have significant obstruction to her light and air. It's never been done by my client. And this whole addition, and the fact that it is only one story, was basically, without even asking, a determination by Ms. Nathorp that she didn't want to do anything that would not be in any way considered neighborly. So those are the facts. I think what this comes down to is a question of reasonableness. If we are to interpret E&F and Verillo as Mr. Green would have you interpret it, then in fact, that is a standard that would allow for no variances whatsoever. No one could come before you and justify a variance. If the standard to be applied as a result of Verillo and E&F is you have to demonstrate that unless the variance is granted, the property in question will have no economic value, then I ask you to look at every single item on your agenda today and for every agenda you have and say, what application can pass that standard? That you can't get a variance unless you can show that the application of the regulation you seek relief from deprives you of all economic value of your property. I don't think that's the standard. If it is, then you guys are out of a job, because there is no zoning board of appeals necessary, in my mind, by that standard. But if you look at and you examine language, the Verillo case, which is the appellate court case, which sort of came down around the same time as E&F, citing Archibald v. Wadlow, which is a case that's often cited to you. The application of the regulations prohibited any reasonable use of the subject lot. Reasonable. They said that a standard for granting a variance was that you have to demonstrate the application of the regulations prohibited any reasonable use of the subject lot. They go on to say, destroys the value of the property for any reasonable uses. E&F, where a board could reasonably find that the application of the regulations greatly decreases or practically destroys its value for any uses to which it could reasonably be put.
So I would submit to you that the standard here is one of reasonableness. And now you weigh that legal standard with the facts. That's your job. But the facts is, I think the photographs established is that this 500 square foot addition on a lot that's over 3,800 square feet smaller than what the zone comprehends, that's a 500 square feet, one-story addition to accommodate the family needs that I've articulated, that's reasonable. It's reasonable, and it's supported by a factual basis as far as the undersized nature of the lot, which again, notwithstanding that fact, this addition, when built, will still be almost 8% less than the square footage that's allowed by way of FAR in the zone, 8%. So that's really what I think you have here. But if we're going to establish such a draconian standard as Mr. Green would have you do, what have you heard so far today? What will you hear later in the agenda that says, yeah, that's it? I can't grant this variance unless not granting it means the property is worthless. Tough standard. Tough standard. I thank you for your time.
John, I got a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, we both have the same question. Go ahead. Both. You go first, John.
May I ask Attorney Green a question?
Yeah, you can have Attorney Green a question.
Has your client ever applied for a variance for any additions to her house in the past?
I don't know that, and the case law is clear that that's irrelevant. I don't know, but the case law says it doesn't matter. All the properties around a property could have variances. It's on a case-by-case basis involving that property, so.
And you also don't know if her house is, as it is now, compliant with the current zoning code? You don't know that?
I don't think any houses in that neighborhood are compliant. They're all small lots, and I suspect they all are below the, minimum size. But they're all legally existing. They're existing and they predate the adoption of those regulations.
Okay, thank you.
That's what he said. Did you have a question?
I did, just a brief stipulation of logic would suffice my question. The addition of the 500 square feet to the stake would affect, the shadow cast by a physical structure, and that it would change, that shadow changes based on position of the sun throughout the course of the year.
Right.
Just simple stipulation.
We don't dispute that.
Okay.
We just wanted to give you something graphic, so we did that the last time we had done, which was a couple of days ago. Thank you.
Just a simple stipulation.
No, I appreciate it.
Attorney Fallon, I have something. Do you know who installed the trellis that's along that fence?
She did.
And that came from your client, just for the record?
For the record, my client advised me that Mrs. Binkley installed the
Okay.
the trellis.
Yes, and I have to thank Jane for telling me. I couldn't think of it, so.
A trellis?
What trellis was.
Trellis.
I knew what it was, I just couldn't come with the word.
Good work.
So.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I was give credit.
As well.
I'm going to close the hearing on 155 Turney Road. Thank you, both attorneys, Green and Fallon. Number 3, 2600 Post Road, map 229, parcel 40, petition of Southport Post Road LMT Partnership for a variance of zoning regulations, section 28.6.12, reduce the parking by 2 spaces, permission to establish outdoor dining premises, DCD don't. Attorney, Mr. Cerrone, elevating you, we're promoting you, whatever you want to do.
I feel I'm an art. That's a tough act to follow. Anyway, for the record, my name is Phil Cerrone. I'm an architect here in Fairfield. My office is at 421 Meadow Street. I'm representing Blackstone's Restaurant as well as Southport Post Road Limited Partnership, who owns the building, and I know Melanie's manager, Blackstone, is on the video also. So just really simply, what we're trying to get approved here today is the 400 square foot patio, which is permitted by the planning and zoning regulations, but the reason that we're before you is that the only real location on the site for it is adjacent to an existing patio, which was approved previously by this board at 660 square feet. So the 400 square feet, we don't need a variance for the 400 square feet, we're allowed that per the planning and zoning regulations. The only reason that we're here is that the location for the patio is where the parking spaces are currently. So we need the variance to eliminate 2 of those parking spaces. Now, I'm going to pass out a couple of photographs. The first one is an aerial photograph that shows during COVID where they actually had the tent, and I'm sorry, did I miss somewhere there? The tent actually took over 5 of the parking spaces, as you can see there. Now, we're not asking for as much of that, and I know it was during COVID, and I know not as many people maybe were going out to dinner, but there was never any issues during that time. The second photograph that I handed out is a photograph of the area where we want to take the 2 parking spaces and increase the patio into that area. So realistically, there's no other location on the site that this would work because it needs to be near the restaurant. And the site is essentially all paved, and as any of you have been there, you'll realize that there is a fair amount of parking on the whole site. Although we don't have any partitions, I know my client has talked to other tenants in the building, and as you probably saw in your file, we have a letter that authorizes us to offer this variance from the landlord of the building, which we needed. So, with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Any questions? Jane?
Hi. So, as it stands now, the amount of parking spaces is exactly the number that that whole building needs, or that the restaurant needs?
So I don't know that, and I don't have that answer exactly, because we would have to have gotten into all of those spaces to really do the calculations, but it's my understanding that except for the fact that the building is over some setbacks, everything else on that site is conforming. The only thing that's non-conforming currently is the fact that the building is too close to the property line.
Can you just say what the hardship is?
So the hardship simply is that for us to be able to do this work here, seeing that the entire site is paved with very little limited of asphalt, non-asphalt areas, and we're permitted to have the 400 square foot patio, there's really no place for us to do this without being able to do it. And the building is already non-conforming, which is part of the issue, because there's no property lines, there's no area between that and the building.
So the 600 square foot patio that's already there, this is going to be added to it?
That's correct. I mean, you can see it on here. So this is the existing patio, and what we want to do is we want to create another 400 feet here.
So,
As you know, the regulations got changed that allow restaurants to have the 400 square feet
right.
without increasing the parking demand or without having to provide any additional parking.
But you don't have the numbers of parking spaces that are required?
I know the existing lot was conforming the way it is. There's no violation currently.
So by taking out those 2 spaces,
We'd be reducing the required by 2 spaces, correct?
So what you're saying is the number of parking spaces that are there right now is exactly the number that's.
That's my understanding.
Exactly. Not a little, there's not just like a few more.
I don't believe there's any.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Mrs. Sarom? All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition to the application? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing on 2600 Post Road. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sarom.
Thank you.
Our next item, number 4, 600 Jennings Road. We already took that earlier. Number 5, 680 Old Academy Road. That was continued. Number 6, 249 Toll House Lane, map 14, parcel 53, petition of Emily and Sandy Joseph for a variance of zoning regulation, section 5.2.5, to increase lot coverage from 15%, currently 14%, proposing 16.4%, permission to remove and rebuild a rear deck and screened porch, premises R3 zone.
She's online.
Oh, okay.
I am on the Zoom meeting, or the WebEx, I should say.
Go ahead, Ms. Joseph.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. So my name's Emily Joseph. I am the owner, along with my husband, and reside at 249 Toll House. So representing myself, no representation. So hopefully I can provide everything that you need. So yeah, we are seeking approval to replace the existing deck off of our kitchen and living area, which existed prior to our purchase of the property, which was about 1.5 years ago. The current deck is deteriorating, showing signs of mold, just kind of general wear and tear. So we're looking to replace that and make it slightly larger to really increase our usable family space. We have 2 young children, so we're looking to create more, like I said, usable living space that isn't like grass and mud in our yard without having to add anything to the existing layout of the house itself. It's a ranch style home, so single story, and we're looking to maintain that, but looking to get a little more space for our growing family by building out the decking area. The lot's a healthy size to accommodate this additional decking, in addition to having still plenty of grassy space beyond that. So the hardship, so to speak, is simply, growing family, looking to increase our living space in ways that don't involve anything major, like adding a level or adding an addition, and really just utilizing the outdoor space that we have in a way that makes us a little more, comfortable. We are also replacing an existing deck off of the primary bedroom, which it appears to be from the same time that the other deck was put in. So similar status as far as deterioration and, wear and tear. And we're also looking to add screening into that deck to protect against mosquitoes and bugs. As you're aware, we're pretty close to the Mill River, so it can get pretty buggy here in the summer months. We have agreement from all of our neighbors to go forward with this, and I think that covers everything. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Does the board have any questions?
Yes.
Hi.
Aside from what your family needs for more room, what is the hardship that's directly tied to the property?
As far, I guess, I don't know how to answer that question exactly. Just looking to make sure that we can utilize our space in our lot and our home in a way that isn't affecting our neighbors or is a hardship to ourselves as far as looking to make like any large additions or things like that. We found that adding this deck was the best kind of compromise, so to speak, for getting what we need out of the space without having to go really overboard with renovations or remodeling. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Joseph? All right. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition? All right, I'm going to close the hearing on 249 Toll House Lane. Thank you very much, Ms. Joseph. Our next item that we have is number 7, 1817 Mill Plain Road, map 147, parcel 178J. Petitioner Marissa and Brandon Shapiro for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase lot coverage and total floor area from 10% and 20%, currently 12.4 and 22.4%, proposing 14.5 and 26.6%, permission to construct a rear 2-story addition premises AA zone. Mr. Kirsch, is it?
Shapiro.
Shapiro, oh, I'm sorry, I saw the agent was Kirsch, so, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Shapiro, I'll make the...
Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies in advance for my poor public speaking. My name is Brandon Shapiro. I'm here with my wife, and we both reside at 1817 Mill Plain Road with our soon-to-be 3-year-old son. We are seeking permission to construct a modest 2-story addition on the rear of our home. Our proposal is to expand the footprint of our home by 195 square feet over existing patio space. This 2-story addition, totaling 390 square feet, includes a second-floor playroom for our son and increased family gathering space on the main floor. The proposed addition is discreetly located at the rear of the home, would be aligned with the rear footprint of our neighbors' homes, and will not have any adverse impact on surrounding properties. On the matter of hardship, our property was built in 2009 and is a pre-existing legal non-conforming lot, currently zoned in Residence District AA. It was approved as part of a subdivision in 2003 with a lot area of 9,375 square feet. Following the subdivision approval, the zone was changed from Residence A to Residence AA, changing the minimum lot area to 43,560 square feet, making our lot coverage and total floor area surpass the newly implemented zoning regulation. That's 34,000 185 square foot difference. Our home is 2,104 square feet, which is a total floor area of 22.4%, already over the 20% max building area for the AA zone. Our proposal is to increase the square footage to 2,495 square feet, which is a 26.6% total floor area. If our quarter-acre property had remained as an A zone, our proposed total floor area would fall well within the maximum limit of 40%. In addition to zoning hardship, we are motivated to pursue this addition due to ongoing radon concerns. Our finished basement, a primary feature in regards to the motivation of our purchase of our home initially, has unsafe levels of radon, often above the EPA action level of 4.0 picocuries per liter, and in some cases reaches as high as 10.0 picocuries per liter. We have an existing subslab depressurization system with 2 draw points. Attempts to remedy the radon in the basement included upgrade of a fan for the existing system and the installation of a second mitigation system. So we have been motivated to remedy this before pursuing the addition. These attempts have been inconsistent in lowering the radon levels to child-safe exposure, rendering this much-needed space for our family unusable without accruing health risk. The board graciously approved the request of our neighbors to reduce setbacks, 1889 Mill Plain Road in 2020 for a 2-story addition, and 30 Duck Farm Road, also a legally non-conforming property, in 2019 for a pool, both part of the same subdivision. In summary, hardship is established by the fact that our home was rendered legally non-conforming due to the change of zone from Residence A to Residence AA. We are respectfully requesting your approval for this modest addition that will allow us to safely enjoy our home with our family.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Any board have any questions? Any questions? Okay.
I also have signatures.
Oh, yeah, bring that up.
Sorry. Three of our neighbors graciously want to sign.
Thank you. You ready? Okay. Let's see if the board has questions, just to make sure, for Mr. Shapiro. All right, hearing no questions, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition to the application? Hearing none, thank you very much, Mr. Shapiro. I'm going to close the hearing on 1817 Mill Plain Road.
Thank you.
The next item that we have is number 8, 1073 North Benson Road, map 143, parcel 160, petition of Fairfield University for a variance of zoning regulations, section 31.2.16, to increase the height of rooftop equipment above the roof line from 5 feet, proposing 9.5 feet, and reduce the setback from the edge of the building from 19 feet, proposing 15.2 feet. Permission to install rooftop HVAC equipment, premises AA zone. Attorney Fallon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm an attorney with offices at 53 Sherman Street in Fairfield. As the chair indicated in the call, we are seeking a variance of section 31.2.16 to allow rooftop equipment to exceed 5 feet above the roof line to a height of 9.9 feet 5 inches, and to allow the setback for such rooftop equipment to be reduced from 19 feet to 15 feet 2 inches. This is a request made in conjunction with the placement of HVAC equipment on the roof of Fairfield Preps Berkman Hall, as you've seen from the material that we submitted. The new items of rooftop equipment will be placed on the existing roof of the building. You may recall that similar equipment is already in place at the adjacent Xavier Hall, which directly abuts both Berkman Hall and is directly abutting North Benson Road. That equipment was approved under variance, I think, granted maybe 2 or 3 years ago by the board. The proposed equipment at Berkman will be very similar in appearance and scale to what is located on the adjacent Xavier Hall, based on the variance that was granted some years ago. As is the case with the equipment of the roof at Xavier Hall, the proposed unit, as shown on the plan submitted for this application, will be located inside a cityscapes enclosure that will screen any view of the equipment from ground level. And as documented by the plans we submitted, the proposed unit at Berkman Hall will actually be less in height than the equipment that's already existing at Xavier. And the proposed unit that we seek your approval of today will not be visible from North Benson Road or the properties adjacent thereto, including our adjacent neighbors. From a legal perspective, the application, you have to look at section 8-683, finds the variance does not substantially affect the comprehensive zoning plan, and that there are elements of facts that establish hardship as our case law defines it. With regard to the first aspect of the test, as previously stated, the location of Berkman's Hall and the proposed screening ensures that there's not going to be any adverse impact or effect on adjacent property owners, as the unit as proposed will not be visible from ground level. The proposed rooftop unit, as I've said, is similar in height to the existing rooftop equipment that has been on the adjacent Xavier Hall for many years, and will be screened in the same manner. In fact, it is, I think, somewhat lower than what's currently on Xavier. With regard to hardship, as you know, Berkman was constructed and has been in operation since the 1940s. The University and Fairfield Prep have always been committed to maintaining and upgrading current facilities in order to ensure that they meet appropriate current standards for use and occupancy. The unit as proposed is going to enhance and improve the existing HVAC system at Berkman Hall, and the variance is required due to the changes in the zoning regulations well after Berkman Hall was constructed and occupied as it relates to current regulations that do pertain to the placement of rooftop equipment. Those regulations were adopted, I want to say, maybe about 15 years ago, and that is the essence of the hardship argument, because we are here because of the impact of the implementation of those current regulations on a building or structure that has been in place since the 1940s. There's not going to be any adverse impact associated with this off campus, and the granting of the variances will not have any adverse impact on adjacent properties. We're really doing this to make sure that we are ensuring the safety and the health and welfare of our students. We need to replace this HVAC system at this time, and by doing that, I think we're also dealing with a benefit for our students and other people who find themselves at Berkman. So be pleased to answer any questions that you might have with regard to the application. But this is similar to what I think we've seen before at Xavier, and as I said, those have been in place for a number of years. I don't think anybody knows they're there, and there's not been any adverse consequences or implications associated with them.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon. Does the board have any questions on 1073 North Benson Road? Hearing no questions, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition to the application? Oh, I see a hand. Is that?
There
My name is Bob Brunetti. I live at 756 North Benson Road, across from Fairfield University. And in regards to not being able to see the unit, that's probably correct, but I didn't hear anything discussed about the noise level that the units produce. The noise I could already hear coming across, you could hear a humming noise in my house. I could tell you when those units across the street run and don't run. And I'm a little bit farther down the road at the bottom of where the soccer field is. And I guess when the new business school was built, there is a loud humming noise that comes across. And I would wish they would put up a sound barrier on the roof to deflect the sound away from North Benson Road. I work at Fairfield Ludlow High School, and on top of Fairfield Ludlow High School on the west side, they did put up a sound barrier because there is a large unit here, and the neighbors did have a problem with sound. And I'd like to see the sound issue addressed on some of the other buildings also at Fairfield U. It seems to be a concern.
What was your last name, sir? I didn't get that.
I apologize. Brunetti, Bob Brunetti.
Brunetti, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brunetti. Is there anyone else that wishes to, voice opposition? Okay, hearing no one else, Attorney Fallon,
Yes, thank you. Let me try to put, Mr. Brunetti somewhat at ease. We did reach out to our neighbors who are directly across the street, from the Xavier Berkman's complex. I understand Mr. Brunetti is somewhat farther down the road, as he says, near the soccer field. I can't speak to any rooftop equipment that's in place at Dolan or anything like that. If he's hearing things associated with that, clearly he can contact me. I'll put him in contact with anybody at the university, to make sure that, you know, hopefully he's comfortable with that. But I would respectfully submit that I don't believe, any of these matters that he might have concerns about are emanating from the existing, rooftop equipment at Xavier, because we've never had a complaint about those from the neighbors immediately adjacent. Plus, I would want to point out that, Berkman is one removed from Xavier. It is therefore not abutting on North Benson. So I don't think the likelihood that this unit, which is the subject of this hearing today, is going to have any adverse impact. However, let me, to reinforce that, provide you with, this was a study that was done, for us back in 2020, when we were in the process of installing the rooftop equipment I mentioned, at Xavier. And as I said, these are, what we're proposing here is the same types of equipment, or the same type of equipment. And if you just look at that, you'll see this is from Perkins Eastman, and I won't read the whole thing, but I will read the, I think, paragraph that is important. In a nutshell, the conclusion from the study is favorable. At nighttime, the equipment was evaluated for a virtual listener standing in front yard of 1062 North Benson Road. That's directly across the street. It was concluded that the noise level would be approximately 45 dBA, which would be similar to what you would hear from a quiet dishwasher standing 3 feet away. And then it goes on to talk about the noise ordinance and what have you. So we did do our due diligence with this equipment when we placed it at Xavier. The findings of Perkins Eastman and the study speaks for itself. As I said, I don't want to diminish Mr. Brunetti's concerns, but I do not believe that whatever concerns he may have are emanating from any rooftop equipment at Xavier Hall, nor will the proposed equipment at Berkman Hall have any impact, especially considering where he lives compared to, say, 1062. Having said that, I'd be pleased to engage him after this hearing or whenever convenient if there are questions or concerns he has about anything else emanating from our buildings.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon. And, Mr. Brunetti, did you receive a notice, by email about this hearing?
I received the notice in the mail, yes.
Okay, I thought by email if you were interested, because I know Attorney Fallon's email was on that, but he has offices, as he said in the record, in Fairfield. And if you search, I mean, I'm sure if you emailed him, he would put you in touch with Fairfield U as to other issues.
I know David Frasinelli. I could give him a call. Or Peter Crowley.
You got it.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll let him know, Mr. Brunetti, of your comments.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Brunetti.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a
Any
nice
other
evening.
questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
You too.
Attorney Cohen, in this that you just handed out, it says that this company has outlined some mitigation steps that could be taken, but what are they? They're not.
They were the cityscape, the screening stuff that we eventually incorporated into that application and now into this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I'm going to close the hearing on 1073 North Benson Road. Thank you, Attorney Fallon. Our next item is number 9, 56 Fairfield Beach Road, map 138, parcel 49. Petition of Aaron and Brendan Biggins for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase lot coverage and total floor area from 20% and 40%, currently 21.5% and 35.2%, proposing 23.3% and 41.1%. Permission to construct the deck in addition for plans premises A zone. Go ahead, give us your name.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I actually have signatures. Should I present them now?
Sure, give us your name, though.
Oh, I'm Erin Biggins.
Okay, I thought so.
From 56 Fairfield Beach.
Yeah, we apologize, we didn't make copies for everyone in the, single copy.
So just, in layman's terms, we're requesting a variance right now to add a small mudroom, a second floor closet, and most importantly, my mother comes to watch our children quite a bit, and there's no bathroom on the third floor. In addition, we also want to construct a small deck in the backyard. There's no way to access the house from the backyard, and our children play there frequently. So from a safety perspective, it's something that's important to us. And then, additional, request is to enclose our front porch, giving us just, about 80 to, or a little bit over 100 square feet more in the front of our house, to be used as FAR. From the technical perspective, we're only requesting an increase of 1.8% in lot coverage, which is about 175 square feet, really, for that deck in the back. And then we also want to note that, right now, there's about 200 square feet that is taken up by stairs and decking to get into our house because of grade. And we're also asking for a 1.1% increase in FAR, which is 107 square feet. And right now, our mechanicals room, takes up more than that in FAR, so we are trying to keep this as small as we can while, being able to build a bathroom on the third floor. We have a significant number of signatures, including our neighbor to the right, who we feel is most impacted by this. We want to do the whole project at once to minimize negative impact to the neighbor.
Thank you, Ms. Biggins. Is, board have any questions? Go ahead, Jane.
Can you please state the hardship?
Sure, I'm so sorry. The hardship is just trying to regain FAR that's being used by mechanical.
Mechanical that would normally be on the ground.
Or in the basement, we're trying to regain that space.
Okay, that's your hardship. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the Biggins?
As well as egress, that's, because we're raised, is additional egress.
But I haven't heard hardship that's based on the particular unique property that's the law of the property. The definition of hardship.
It's a standard size lot. Really, a lot of it comes down to the fact that it's a raised house.
Any other questions? All right. Anyone wish to speak in favor of the application? Yeah, go ahead. Biggins?
I'll let them stay there. My name's Jordan
Just be loud, Mr. Thomas.
My name is Jordan Thomas. I live at 40 Fairfield Beach Road, and I support this minor modification, variance.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
And my wife's here also supporting.
And they're great neighbors.
Okay. Anyone else, yes, ma'am?
Hi, my name is Mary Tetro, and I live at 86 Fairfield Beach Road, and I support this variance. They are wonderful neighbors. They have done tremendous improvements to the outside exterior of this house. I've lived on Fairfield Beach Road for it feels like that. It's going on 28 years. And they are good neighbors, as Jordan has said, and I certainly support it. They've been, all around us, houses are changing and lifting for the flooding. We're all struggling with the small spaces, and I certainly hope this board will give due credit to them.
Thank you, Ms. Tisha. Is there anyone else in favor of the application, 56 Fairfield Beach Road? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Yes, go ahead.
Andy Bukowski.
Mr. Bukowski, go up there.
Come on.
I'm Andy Bukowski, living 67 Carlin Drive. I'm actually the most affected about the addition. My house is going to be most affected Drive, number 8. They have the signature of those people. I talked to those people after you guys got the signature, and actually people from 40, from number 8 don't realize, you know, what the addition gonna do for their view from their house. The reason I'm opposing that, because my house is elevated. I've been in front of this board before, you know, I wanna take my house down and rebuild the house, and this board denied my application back then, you know, and I don't have problem with the addition on front, but the addition over the right side of the house, it's two-story addition above the, you know, what is, even the attic roof line, it's so high, you know, if you look on fascia, on the addition on the right side, it's like 8 feet above the fascia of main house, which I don't think so even meets the, you know, the height requirement for roof line, you know, the midpoint of the roof line. You know, I know that's not a requirement for, you know, for the addition, but, you know, so that addition on the right side is gonna impact value, not only my house, but the houses behind me. You know, the beach area, as you know, the beach area, it's not the, you know, the area where, you know, we can get the, you know, height, you know, whatever we want, you know, it's very difficult, you know, area. I'm builder in town, and I know most of the regulations, and, you know, we try, you know, always meet the regulation. I understand they have, you know, hardship on a part of the coverage, but I think their lot even is slightly bigger than, you know, required lot in the neighborhood. So, you know, the hardship, I don't think so, the coverage is not the, you know, the value here. Like Attorney Green says, you know, this is, you know, pretty much the same situation in this case, you know, was the, you know, the previous application. Nothing else I can say.
All right.
I don't have nothing against neighbor, but, you know, it's gonna cut my view from my bedroom, first of all, and, you know, it's the neighbor where, you know, with the little window, it's very important to have view, you know, the water, and that's, you know, change value of the homes drastically, if, you know, any broker in town, when it says, hey, you know, if you don't have any view and, you know, of water, your value of the home in beach area goes drastically down, you know, so I know it's money shouldn't be talking here, but, you know, it's, approving the application is gonna devalue a couple homes in back, you know.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, guys, but, you know.
You're entitled to your comments, sir. Just 1 second. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the application, 56 Fairfield Beach Road? Anyone remote?
No, sir.
All right, okay. Mr. or Mrs. or both?
Both.
Can speak. And just remember the comments addressed to the variance request and, you know, and that, just keep it that way.
Respectfully, in relation to your comments, so the hardship, or the request for the variance is really being made because of the enclosure of the front porch. So if we were to remove the enclosure of the front porch and stick with just the 3-story structure that he opposes, and ignore the back deck, we do believe we would be within the appropriate requirements. And our reason for requesting the variance right now is to not have to disrupt the neighborhood with construction twice if we were to try to come back for another variance eventually. So while it's not a huge hardship, we are able, I believe, under the existing requirements, to be able to construct that 2.5-story structure that he objects to without a variance. And so it's just a question right now of us having to do construction this year and then coming back for a variance potentially next year for a deck or a front enclosure. We believe that the front porch enclosure will be approximately 150 to 3 square feet, and we're only over FAR by 107. And our stairs, et cetera, are about 200 square feet, and our back deck would be about 175 square feet. So we are just trying to do it all together. But I do believe, and our architect is on the phone, that if we wanted to just proceed with that tower, I believe we could within our existing requirements and within the allowable FAR. So that's, I think, our case for
The only thing I would want to add is, the mention of the house being 8 feet above the rest of the house is not consistent with what we have. We have a addition that is pretty much in line with the rest of the height of the house. And also, the other two neighbors, we do have their signatures. They were very supportive when we spoke to them.
And we were not misleading. We showed them the hut. I mean, there's a hut, a small hut right now where our mechanicals are. That is where it's going to be raised. We drew a picture, we laid it out. We were not trying to be misleading at all to the other neighbors on Carmen. They just are honestly, if you're facing our house, very far to the left and really not very impeded by it. And this is pictures, I mean, these are different pictures. Like, this is a picture of our house with that small structure. I don't know if it's helpful. And this is a picture of his house behind us, so I don't know, it's not that wide, is what I guess.
Sorry for the amateur pictures. So this is our house, this is the structure we just want to build up to the third floor. And then this deck here, which already has a deck over it, we were just building that out. And then we're putting a deck behind that, just alongside the house to put a grill somewhere. And then this is his house behind us, you can see is taller than our house, and is blocked by our house to begin with, so.
We'll just leave those two
perspectives. Yeah.
Which part of your addition is blocking?
Yeah.
That's the little addition on the right.
It would be, so you
So
see,
like the third floor?
you see this odd structure right here?
Yeah,
That's our mechanicals.
okay.
And so, and there's a little deck area in front of it. So what we want to do is just take that over and go up to the height of the house,
The
with a
third floor that's
mudroom
blocking the view?
and a bathroom. So it would be kind of up here where we'd be blocking his view.
We should really keep those part of the record.
Yeah.
There you go, okay?
Should we stay?
1 second, just to see if there's any questions.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
For, Katie,
So we
Katie,
feel a little,
right here.
Yeah, no.
ill-equipped without a lawyer, and, you know, our neighbor behind us is a large builder.
Trust me, a lawyer can hurt you, okay? And I'm a lawyer. Lawyers can say that, so, okay, any questions for the Biggins on that rebuttal? Okay, all right. I'm gonna close the hearing now on 56 Fairfield. It's an order, okay? They get the last word. All right, even though I already know you're in support. The board already knows you're in support, but I follow an order, and they have the burden to prove to us that hardship be granted. They get the last word, and that's the order that we follow, and we've been following it for
Even something that said false,
eons.
even if something was false, is that to you?
It's up for us to determine, okay? All right. I'm gonna close the hearing. If I do that, sir, I'll be here all day. And that's not the protocol that we follow for this public hearing. I'm gonna close the hearing on 56 Fairfield Beach Road. Number 10, 85 Northfield Road, map 231, parcel 289, petition of Pasquale and Janine, I'm sorry, Alianello? All right, coming from Irish person, I'm surprised I got it. But for variance, of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the sum of two sideline setbacks and the street line setback from 25 feet and 30 feet, currently 20.1 feet and 26 feet, proposing 20.1 feet and 26 feet, and section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage and total floor area from 20% and 40%, currently 23.48% and 31%, proposing 22.79% and 41.96%, permission to remove and rebuild one-story, one-car garage and sunroom and build a second floor over both premises, A zone. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. I just wanted to hand out our notification to all our neighbors that was signed, and then Janine will discuss the rest.
So, for Pat and Janine Alianello, and we recently purchased a small home on Northfield. We wish to remove the existing one-car garage and construct a two-story addition, with the garage and a bedroom above it, and a rear second floor addition to expand the existing bedroom and to add a second bathroom. Our hardship is that we have a pre-existing non-conforming lot in the residential A zone where the minimum lot size and square required to be 9,375 square feet and 75 per square. Our lot is only 5,500 square feet and only has square feet of 55 feet. Our home is currently in non-compliance with some of the two side line setbacks and the street line setback where the minimum of two-story setback is 25 feet and we only have 20.1 feet. The street setback is required to be 30 feet and we currently have 26. We are only proposing to build up and not encroach any further onto the setbacks that already exist. And we're not seeking to reduce the setbacks any further. We are reducing the non-coverage as well. So we'll be removing about 130-something square feet of an old deck, and we will just have a little patio of grass from the coverage. So we're going to get that back. And if you're familiar with the neighborhood, this renovation idea is in character with all the other neighbors have, and I believe it would be a big improvement because we're one of the only two older houses that still have, siding and dated looks, so
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see if we have any questions for you guys. Any questions from the board? No, you put your hand up a little.
No.
All right. Anyone wish to speak in favor of the application?
our neighbor went on a wedding, so he couldn't come, but he signed that.
Anyone in opposition to the application? 85 Northfield Road. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing on 85 Northfield Road. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is number 11, 101 Halls Highway, map 243, parcel 305. Petition of William and Stephanie Ragatz for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase the total floor area from 50%, currently 20.5%, proposing 53.2%. Permission to build a detached one-car garage and rear shed dormer to existing house, premises B zone. Go ahead.
Thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm Bill Ragatz. My wife Stephanie is here to join me today. We are looking for a variance. We are recent new members to the Southport Society. We joined about 18 months ago. We moved into this house. We bought a small cape thinking it was going to be a wonderful chance for us to expand with our growing grandkids and have people over. What we weren't aware of and the hardship that we have is Holtz Highway. For those of you who are familiar with Holtz Highway, it is a very busy road and unfortunately a road that people love to speed on. And with no sidewalks in the area, it's very dangerous for us to be having friends come over without adequate room to park cars and have visitors. So what we're looking to do is to add a garage where our shed is currently, so we can then pull more cars into our driveway and make that a much safer way for people to come visit us while we're home. We have talked to our neighbors. We got to meet a whole bunch of our neighbors since we're relatively new, so that was a nice little side benefit of this. While we weren't able to get signatures from all of them, the ones we were able to talk to, none of them voiced any concerns, and we were able to speak to all of our immediate neighbors, and they were very friendly and supportive of this concept. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Ragatz. Board have any questions? All right. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition to the application? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing on 101 Halls Highway. Thank you very much, Mr. Sir. Next item, number 12, 177 Nickel Street, map 182, parcel 706B. Petition of Christopher A. and Lindsay Trapp for variance, the zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase the lot coverage and total floor area from 30% to 50%, currently 29% and 49.9%, proposing 32.1% and 52.5%, permission to construct a new 2.5-story FEMA-compliant single-family home, dwelling, premises B-Zone. Attorney Russo, go ahead.
Chair, Commissioners, good to be before you again. Chris Russo with Russo Renzio LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road, Connecticut, here on behalf of the applicant. For a very slightly different, Chair, than what was read. After submission, and I'll go through what the error was, it was actually found that there was not a need for a lot coverage area. So we are going, this proposal is completely conforming with regards to lot coverage. It is only for the floor area, and that's actually reduced from what was originally, instead of going from 50%, it's from 50 to, 50% to 51.2%. My boss has a special rating. 51.2%. So only up 1.2%. There is no lot coverage variance. So if 920 Old Post Road was Divinus variance, this is minimus Divinus. I mean, this is as small as it gets. It's a very small addition to the existing family dwelling. And you probably drove by, you're like, wait, the house is already here. It is just for the addition off here, off the rear corner, to square off that back side of the building. Again, it's a one-story addition. We're not asking for a two-story, just a one-story addition. If I could show you just zooming in on this to kind of make that clear. The zoomed in. That's right.
Yeah, okay, great.
So this is zooming in on the area where we're putting this addition. It's one story. There is already in this back portion of the building a deck and a stairwell, which already counts towards building coverage. The mistake was that it was thought that that number wasn't counted in. So really, the only thing that's increasing as far as building coverage is not this whole area here. It's just this little portion here that's not deck and not stairwell, and then the new stairwell. That's what's getting added to coverage. That is only a 0.9% increase from our existing coverage. So we're going from 29 to 29.9% coverage, which is under the 30% lot coverage. So we don't need the coverage variance. The floor area variance is for the part that's in red. And that's because this deck is uncovered, and so is the stairwell. So it doesn't right now count towards floor area. So basically, we're covering in the portion that's a deck and that's a stairwell, and we're adding this little corner to it. It amounts to 75 square feet of floor area that we are asking for a variance. To show you some pictures of the site, just so you can visually see that. I'll do it again. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, let's get passed down. I'll pull up the elevation plan so you can see. This is the existing elevation. So you can see here, here's that deck, and then here's the stairwell that's existing right now. So again, we're just squaring that off and closing it, which turns it into floor area. That's why we need the variance. But to show you this thing, so there's the proposed with this built in. So just looking at the pictures I handed out, the first in the top left is, on the first page, is the front of the dwelling from Nichols Street. My client apologizes for the garage door being open and the kids' stuff being out. There was an intense basketball game going on when I showed up. And then the next picture to the right is off to the side there. And one of the things I want to show with that picture is that the fence is there, and you really can't see where this addition is going. It's going off that back left corner, but you can see how well screened basically it is from the street. It's not something that's very visible. The bottom left shows that existing deck and stairwell. So if you can imagine it, where the bottom of the stairwell goes is where that new addition would go out to, and then it would come as close to where I'm taking the picture from as the deck. So that's all we're talking about in closing here. The picture on the bottom right just shows that from a different angle. In the second page, the top left picture is just that side elevation. You can see the deck there in the bottom left of that picture. It's a beautiful house. It's Marc Andre did a terrific job. It's really a gorgeous house. Really well done. The remaining pictures just show where this addition is in relation to the abutting properties, to just show how little impact it will have on the abutting properties. So the picture in the top right is looking that way. That's the top right picture is looking that way. And what you'll notice is one, you wouldn't be able to see around to see where this thing is, but also the portion of the building that's there doesn't even have, of the building that's next door doesn't even have any windows facing towards this backyard. It's a corner lot. It's actually facing this way instead of facing the same direction as my client's house. The picture on the bottom left is looking to the rear of the property, and the structure that you see there in that picture is a detached accessory garage. It's not their dwelling. You can also see that facade has no windows. The final picture is the property over here. What I wanted to show in that, I'm taking the picture from where the addition is. Their house is actually much closer over here to Nickel Street. It doesn't come that back far. So from their dwelling, you know, they have kind of an angle just like that, but it's not like they're right on par with this addition. So it's very well buffered, and you'll see I'll hand out a petition. That neighbor is in support of this application, as is the neighbor behind here. So the two neighbors who would actually be able to see this addition are in support of the application. So again, it's for a very small addition off the rear. It is only one story. Basically, my client is looking to use the portion of coverage that they have remaining and stay, and just by doing that, by going to 29.9%, so still being compliant, it just puts them slightly over. It's only a one-story. They didn't say, okay, you know, we have this extra lot coverage, so we're going to expand to the limit of lot coverage and go 2 stories up. I mean, they just really added as little as they possibly could. With regard to hardship, granting the applicant's variance the comprehensive zoning plan of the town of Fairfield in adherence to the strict letter of the regulations will cause an unusual hardship to the applicant, as the applicant is simply squaring up the building in an area with an existing deck and staying underneath the permitted lot coverage, but cannot meet its permitted lot coverage without slightly crossing the floor area requirement. We're only exceeding the floor area requirement by 75 square feet. The existing building in addition are fully compliant with all setback and height requirements. The proposed addition is 16 feet beyond the minimum rear setback, so well beyond the minimum rear setback, and it's almost 10 feet beyond the minimum side setback. So it's well within the setbacks, and it's not really visible from the street, as you can see from the pictures. It's extremely well buffered, I mean. The applicant received support from neighbors. And so these are the petition and support. And I did a map as well, just to show which are those neighbors that signed. They went around, and these were the neighbors that they were able to meet with and get in contact with. I don't think any opposition letters that they filed on this application. Everybody sent petitions, obviously, in support. And what you can see on that, most importantly, again, is that these two neighbors support. And I was listening in to some of the prior applications, and I heard Mr. Green talk about petitions. And I think the important part of petitions is not that they are trying to say this variance is no harm, no foul, you know, if you approve it. what it really is saying is it's giving you evidence that these neighbors who live in the area who would be most impacted by it, that they are telling you that this variance will not negatively impact their neighborhood. One thing you're charged with and looking is, will a variance impact the character of the neighborhood? Will it impact an abutting property because it's getting too close to them, or it's too bulky, or it's too looming? And what's better than a petition from neighbors like the one we have, where they say that they have looked at the plans for this project and that they support it. They know that area the best, they know the layout of the property, they know the dwelling the best, and they're giving evidence to this board, and I know this board values petition in support of neighbors from all the applications I've done here before. They are providing evidence that this request will not have an impact on the neighborhood and on their property. So I think that's what is really important about petitions, and why they should be strongly considered. And in this case, again, the most impacted are supporting it. I also heard the conversation regarding reasonableness, and Attorney Fallon stole my pictures. I'll steal his reasonableness argument. You know, this strict interpretation of you know, what you can approve as far as a variance, and the level that Attorney Green was talking about, if we read it at that level, we basically, as Attorney Fallon was saying, there would be no need for the Zoning Board of Appeals. They would all be denied. You know, and I would be out of all the ZBA applications I have, I'll have to start moonlighting as like an Uber driver. It's not that draconian. I think what Attorney Fallon was alluding to is it's a reasonableness. And so you look at each application and at each property, and here we have a site that is mostly developed, but does have some available lot coverage to it, where it can expand and be within the lot coverage regulations, right? So it can go to 30%. The problem for them is any type of expansion is going to require a floor area variance. So they have come forward with a very reasonable application and locating this additional floor area that needs a variance in a location that minimally impacts people. It's only one story. It's not trying to push it to a two-story or something like that. It's just squaring off a corner, and then we've gotten the signatures to make sure it doesn't impact the abutting property and it doesn't impair the neighborhood. And I think, you know, as Attorney Fallon was saying, that reasonable standard provides you your basis for granting a variance in a situation like this. Hardship being, there's coverage here that can be given that we can utilize, but by doing so, because this property is already fully developed, we're going to cross the floor area. And floor area is tough because if it was a lot coverage variance, a lot of time what we've done with lot coverage variances and trying to reduce them is we've removed, you know, if there's a patio that's over a foot or something like that, we've tried to reduce that to kind of balance it out as far as lot coverage. But floor area, there's nothing we can do really about that. We're getting to 30%, we're just covered, you know, and just by enclosing this area a little bit larger than what's already existing, we're creating the need for a floor area variance, or the need for a floor area variance is created. So that's basically it. Okay. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Russo. Any questions? I have a question, and thank you for pointing this out. And I remember this. It was my error for not announcing it during the call, but the call is what's on the agenda. So my understanding is that you're only seeking a variance for a one-story addition and only for a variance of 5.2.5 to increase the total floor area from 50% to 51.2%.
51.2%.
And if we present it, I intend to present it, well, when we present it, I intend to present it in that manner.
Correct.
For a variance. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Anyone wish to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition to the application?
Not
online, sir.
Okay, it's a lot of people online. We only got 2 things left. Okay, we're gonna close the hearing at 177 Nichols Street. Thank you, Attorney Reed. Our next item we have, and we'll see what all the audience is about. The next item we have is 117 Colonial Drive, map 139, parcel 97, petition of Daniel and Christina Kelly for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.5, to increase lot coverage from 20%, currently 19%, proposing 21.25%, permission to construct a FEMA-compliant pool house, premises A zone. Attorney Fallon, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm pleased to be here today representing Dan and Chrissy Kelly, who are seated right there. I'm having terrible thoughts about calling for an Uber one night and finding Chris Russo behind the wheel. So, please do the right thing. But seriously, I digress. Dan and Kelly have lived in Fairfield since 2005. They're both graduates from my alma mater, Fairfield University. Dan's also a graduate of Prep. They have 4 children, ages 15, 14, 13, and 12. One attending Fairfield Prep, one at Fairfield Ludlow, and 2 at Roger Ludlow Middle School. I mention that because this application has a lot to do about family, and we'll talk about that, but that's why I take the time to tell you a little bit about their family. Both Dan and Chrissy are very active in the community. I won't belabor you with all the things they do. I will tell you that Chrissy has served on the RTM and currently sits on our Fairfield Board of Education. So it's pretty clear they love their family, they love their home, they love their neighborhood where they've resided for almost 10 years. When the house was constructed 10 years ago, it was, of course, post-Sandy, required to comply with all applicable provisions of FEMA regulations, including a significant elevation of living area of the house above grade. This required, as you've seen if you were out looking at the property, the installation of very significant staircases consisting of 13 steps in the back of the home for ingress and egress. Although they love their home, as time has passed, this has become a growing problem for them, especially in light of the fact that they have elderly relatives who more and more have struggled in order to get up and down those significant stairs that were part of the house construction based upon the FEMA requirements. They haven't really been able to enjoy the yard. There are some safety-related issues when they will have to use the bathroom if they do get down there, go back into the main house. And in a way, once they feel inside the house because of those issues, as Chrissy described it, they sort of feel trapped. So there's also the issue of not enough outdoor living space to eat as a family, have a family meal, and to enjoy the backyard, including the pool, which they are looking forward to constructing, and which is not part of this application. The situation is exacerbated by the fact that the relatives I referenced have come to stay with the Kellys sometimes for a week or 2 at a time, so this issue becomes more pronounced. To seek or address that situation, we seek a variance of section 5.2.5 to allow an increase of 1.25%, a number you've been hearing a lot today, over the allowable coverage of 20%, in order to construct a proposed deck and a pool house as shown on the plans we've submitted. Having the deck will allow for their older relatives to enjoy the outside area, including enjoying the backyard area with their grandchildren, without having to navigate those steps, 13 down and 13 back. This is going to provide easier and safer access, especially for the older relatives, but for everyone. It'll give them an opportunity to be close to the restroom without having to go down into the yard. The pool house, as proposed, very attractive, I would add, will also provide access if they do venture down to the pool area for a restroom for the entire family. So what this is really all about is trying to deal with the house they love, but where there's a 13-step drop from the house to the backyard, and the deck will help alleviate the drawbacks associated with that. So from a legal perspective, you need to determine if the variance will not substantially affect the comprehensive zoning plan, and if there are factual elements relative to the property and the circumstances that satisfy the hardship requirement as our case law defines it. With regard to the first part of the test, again, I cite the Egan case, which stands for the proposition, that, the use to be allowed is permitted use of the zone, consistent with other uses in the area, then that first aspect of the test is met. The granting of this very modest variance of 1.25% of coverage is not gonna change the use of the property, it's not gonna have any adverse impact with regard to our neighbors. The pool in the pool house, designed by William Levy Architecture, is very attractive. It harmonizes with the primary dwelling and the character of the other homes in the neighborhood. Chrissy and Dan went door to door. They did contact all of their abutting neighbors, showed them the plans, and I give you the petition that confirms they have notified their neighbors, and their neighbors are not objecting. With regard to the hardship requirement, this really gets back to cases we've cited to you post-Sandy for almost a decade now, and that is that the impact of FEMA regulations and compliance with those regulations has been recognized both by this board and boards around the state to establish as a matter of hardship, where the most certainly is the case in this situation, where the compliance with the FEMA regulations required the home to be constructed at a significantly high elevation, thus requiring incorporation of the staircase as constructed to the rear of the property, which contains those 13 steps. So the basis for hardship here is the impact of the FEMA regulations on this house that was constructed about a decade ago in full compliance. At the end of the day, what we're trying to address, as I said, is the inconvenience, and as the relatives grow older, somewhat safety-related concerns about having to transverse back and forth to get to the backyard by way of these rather steep 13 steps, which you have probably seen. And this is exacerbated by the fact that as time passes, the kids get older, the relatives quite nicely are visiting more and more. So the deck and the small pool house will provide convenient access to the outdoor backyard area without need of gaining ingress and egress to the yard area by the steep staircase. Again, we reviewed this with our neighbors. The backyard area is well secluded, and the neighbors are pleased to not oppose and to support the application. The key legal point, however, is hardship is established based upon the impact of compliance with FEMA regulations as it relates to the structure's elevation and the need for the staircase. So that is our presentation. We will be pleased to answer any questions that you might have, and we hope you might favorably consider the application.
Thank you, Attorney Fallon. Is there any questions? Okay, hearing no questions, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in opposition to the application, 117 Colonial Drive? Nothing there. All right, hearing no other comments, I'm going to close the hearing on 117 Colonial Drive. Thank you, Attorney Fallon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The last item on our agenda now is number 14, which is 263 Katona Drive, map 76, parcel 277. Petition of Milford Fenway Realty LLC for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the sum of two sideline setbacks from 25 feet, currently 22.8 feet, and proposing 19.7 feet. Permission to remove dwelling to the foundation and build a new 2.5-story single-family dwelling, premises A zone. Attorney Gumper, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Kevin Gumper. I'm an attorney at the firm of Holiday & Gumper & Dowling at 2228 Black Rock Turnpike in Fairfield. And I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Milford Fenway Realty LLC. I have a handout here for you, if I may.
Do we still get the original?
Yes, he does. He does. Thank you very much. All righty. And what I've given you is a reduced plot plan and site plan showing the building and the proposed construction on the lot. I've also given you a copy of the
petition that was signed by the neighbors, and you can see that the subject premises is in gray, and the people who signed the petition are in red. And see, everybody did except for the people at 262, and I wasn't there, but they told, one of the members of the applicant that, they didn't have an objection, but they weren't signing anything, so. Don't know that that's not the worst advice they've got. This application is for a reduction of some of the side setbacks. If you look at the plot plan in front of you, you can see that the left rear corner of the house is too close to the sideline, and you can see that the sideline shoots back there. Instead of going straight back, goes back at a 38-degree angle, which makes a very odd-shaped lot, and is really, the configuration of this lot is essentially the hardship. Right now, the house is actually too close to it's already in violation of the zoning regulations. They required some of the side setbacks is 25 feet. Right now, it's at 22.8 feet, and the applicant wants to go 36 inches close, 37 and a half inches closer to reduce that to 19.7 feet. By doing so, they'll be able to square off basically the back of the house and add a two-story addition. This may seem familiar to you, this application, because this exact application was before you in December, and you approved this variance. Subsequently, the zoning enforcement officer determined that there was a defect in the application, requiring us to come back again. We certainly don't agree with his representation, his determination. However, we decided to come back, rather than go to court and be the next 3 years. The house is half built at this point, and it's sitting there with a stop work order on it, and we need to get moving forward with it. There is one slight variation with the call here. The call says the property, we're seeking permission to take the house down to the foundation. It's not quite right. The walls are being taken down to the first floor deck, which is, the first floor will stand. Hard to say what the first floor is at the split level, but yes, it's to the lowest built level. That is still there. The walls were taken down, instead of just simply being replaced. I don't know that that is a significant difference and would require a reapplication, but rather than arguing it, here we are. And that's about the size.
Okay, all right. Any questions for Attorney Gunther? All right, anyone wish to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone in opposition to the application? Is there anyone? No?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. No comments. There's a lot of people there, but no comments.
I don't recognize any of the names.
I will,
Crossing their fingers.
that's it, that's what happens. I'm gonna close the hearing on 263 Katona Drive. Thank you, Attorney Comfort, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, now the public hearing is now closed. And what we're gonna do is we gotta take a little break, for us. But we're gonna take it for 10 minutes and we'll reconvene. At that point, we'll be voting on all the matters that went forward today. Okay? Go back to order. Town of Fairfield Zoning Board of Appeals are voting for the matters went forward today on public hearing, May 4, 2023. First item that we had for business was from our continued docket, number 5, 2268 Fairfield Beach Road. Ray Russo presented this. It was for construct a two-story FEMA-compliant home. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Brian, is there a second?
Jane, second.
Thank you, Jane. All right, discussion.
Well, I think as the attorney well pointed out, this one alleviates several concerns, does it not? Reduces a number of nonconformities.
Yeah, it's dropping down the FAR 11%. Almost, not 11%, almost 11%. Can't complain about that.
No.
All right, bring it to a vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next is number 9 on the continued, 1001 South Pine Creek Road, that was withdrawn. Number 10 on a continued docket, 1003 South Pine Creek Road was withdrawn. Number 1 on our general docket, 920 Old Post Road, again, for the record, I'm recusing myself on this, but I would just lead the discussion, not participate, just so I can keep track. I think the chairman, Mr. Keegan, for this matter, would entertain a motion to approve, is that correct?
Yes. So moved.
Okay, Brian, is there a second?
Okay, second.
Yes. Thank you, Jane. All right, Harold, make sure you're on this one.
Yes.
And just remember, we had opposition, we heard from Mr. Cunningham as well, on this. Discussion.
I'll start with a notice was amply provided, or at least within, the requirements, based on my understanding of the purview, of the objections, or that you referenced the Historical Commission. It doesn't have anything to do with the Historical Commission, doesn't have anything to do with with what we're talking about. They deal mostly with frontage, and
You have to be able to see it.
you have to be able to see it from a public way. So I don't think those conditions are met for the objection. I think it's a reasonable one. I'm gonna steal Katie's line early, a de minimis request.
On the other hand,
Yes.
on the other hand, Attorney Russo stated several times that it was a fully compliant lot. He said that a number of times. So if it's so fully compliant, then what is the hardship? It's a brand new house, redesign it. So
Isn't the hardship the odd angles of the lot also?
I mean, there's plenty of odd lots in town. It's a brand new house. It's not like they're dealing with an existing house, just it was an afterthought, the thing that they're putting on there. They, they just need to sharpen their pencils and move some things on.
This is Harold. Taking into consideration Mr. Cunningham's comments and, the fact that there was a preponderance of, signers who objected to the construction, this is still a buildable lot, approved buildable lot. There is no house on it currently, and, although I can understand inconveniences of, one of the neighbors, who might, be inconvenienced, by the construction, the 3 closest neighbors, to this property have approved it. So, given the fact that it's a buildable lot, the immediate neighbors, 3 of the immediate neighbors are in, agreement to have the construction take place. I don't see that there's an issue.
What would you say the hardship is, that they have to prove?
Well, the hardship is that, this is a buildable lot, and why not make use of it? And as Attorney Russo pointed out, the, small rectangle that is being added, does not impact the buildability of the property.
True, but it's a brand new house. They could redesign it, so you wouldn't have that.
Is there, reason to force a redesign of the property?
Not of the property, of the house.
Of the house, I
Okay.
mean, yes.
To make it compliant, so they wouldn't have a hardship. They wouldn't have to have a
According
variance.
to Attorney Russo, it is already compliant because that small rectangle is not, does not affect the, does not require a variance, as I understood.
It's in the setback. It does require, that's why he's here.
It touches
It
the
requires a
setback.
variance. That's why he's here.
Yes, that's true too.
You know, I would point out also though, that there's still, and they could build, some of the concerns were bulk and mass or whatever the terminology was. They could build a much bigger home. They're still under coverage by almost 2%, and they're under FAR by 10%. so they certainly could do something bigger.
Need to,
Yeah, then it could be even bigger.
true, but
It's a question of geometry. I mean, they're within the setback by a minimal, by a fraction. I don't think it's and I know someone's gonna say an inch or a mile, but I think they've designed a nice property that fits with the community. They've gotten buy-in from the Historic Commission. I think they've done their diligence to build something effective. I know they could change some kind of geometry or just tilt the house 5 degrees or something, but I don't think that would be a reasonable demand on a house to get it a foot out of a setback.
well, at this point, it's just the house doesn't exist, it's just lines on paper, so
Right.
they
Well, they're
just
gonna-
redraw it.
Well, whatever they redraw, if it moves forward or back, it's probably gonna end up within a setback. They're gonna end up back here anyway.
Not if it's designed by an architect and they follow the regulations.
Done? Guys done?
Yes.
All right, you vote last now.
Okay.
Okay? Okay?
Oh, yeah, bring
I'm
it
just
to a
trying to-
vote.
Yes.
I'm not a lawyer.
Yes, yes.
I'm a no.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Number 2, 155 Attorney Road. Attorney Fallon presented this. It's, to construct the, one-story addition and deck. And entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. And discussion, remember, this is Attorney Green, presented this, opposition.
Notwithstanding the question that I posed in terms of variability of the sun, I think it's an addition that is taken into account as much as they can, the neighbors. I think it's reasonable, has been labored over the use of reason. And, I think it's gonna be a nice addition to the neighborhood. I don't think it's gonna affect anyone in a truly negative way. I don't think the impact on the neighbor is significant. And the design is in consideration of that fact.
I think that Mr. Chairman's going to point out that the trellis that was erected by the neighbor already blocks her view.
So,
Good pick, Jane. Yes, and that's why I asked the question. Sometimes I ask questions when I don't even know the answer, but I assumed the answer, by the location of it. And when you put trellises up, you usually put greenery on trellises. That's the whole purpose of it. I just couldn't think of the word trellis, and I thank Jane, our secretary, for reminding me of that. I asked our architect for that term, and I knew she'd have it off the top of her head.
You know, one other point that was interesting is that the neighbor who was unhappy with the addition, her house is more over coverage than this application is asking for.
Yeah, that's not.
Not that it's precedent, not that it matters.
Attorney Green is 100% correct. People bring that up, and, we had 4 applications today, or 5, that mentioned other variances that were approved in the neighborhood.
Can't do it.
And it's like I didn't hear it, and I hope the board doesn't hear it, because that's the way we should treat it. But, you know, the common unfortunate here is that the back and forth was a little bit more personal than to the point. So that's, and I try to state that in my opening remarks to the public hearings, but we have to do that, and I think it was appropriate to allow the photographs in a rebuttal, because that's a rebuttal, and quite frankly, it would have been dangerous if the comments were not made by Attorney Green, because then Attorney Fallon, he'd have every right to object to it if he didn't make those comments. But Attorney Fallon obviously anticipated an argument in opposition and was prepared to show that, but the other stuff is 32.2, and I think you said 13.2, but the record is 32.2% when you allowed 40, so that's, it says something about the addition that they're putting in, so. Bring it to a vote?
Yes.
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 Sorry, I'm very excited.
Number 3, 2600 Post Road, Mr. Cerrone, presented this. This is for the, Blackstone Grill. They wanted to, add to the, outdoor dining, and then to do that, they're taking, 2 spaces, so they want forgiveness of that, allowing a reduction in the required parking by those 2 spaces. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
I did look up, there are 142 spaces plus 4, accessible spaces, so, and I assume that because it wasn't requested, that taking away the 2 spaces is not going to diminish the required amount, so, no big.
No biggie.
And nothing's been constructed, really, I mean, it's just asphalt or that,
Permeable
there's
surface.
no building.
And if they put it on the other side of the existing deck, unfortunately, it would be on their property.
Yeah.
So,
They're like in the street.
so the town would have a little problem with that, because it would be out into that road, and you'd have people dining with cars going by pretty quick. They do drive quick there, so, it's the right spot to put it in.
Yeah.
You looked at, it's a big lot. I know you want to be close, but there's a big lot there.
Yeah.
All right, bring to a vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item is, number 4, 600 Jennings. Raymond Smith presented this for the town, one of the engineers, and this is to, construct a, accessory structure, 2,000-gallon fuel tank. They need a variance to do so. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Is there a second? Thanks, Jane. Discussion?
I got a good answer when they asked why they didn't put it back underground, so, fine by me.
It's hard to detect those leaks when they're underground.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As the real estate agents on the board understand, can affect a lot of real estate. So, bring it to a vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Number 5, 680 Old Academy Road was continued. Number 6, 249 Toll House Lane, the Josephs, presented the application to remove and rebuild rear deck and screen porch. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry. Discussion? I'm waiting, Jane.
I'm not clear on what the hardship is. Everyone knows the hardship can't be because your family needs more room or your kids need a place to play, it has to be tied to the property. And I didn't hear that. So somebody convinced me.
I leave this to the chair. I usually argue.
I try not to, argue it.
But I realize they
I
only
make
have.
comments sometimes. I think it's necessary to make comments.
I mean, I'll state my normal case. I think it's a reasonable request. I don't think it has any effect or impact, negative or otherwise, on the surrounding area. I think to provide this is simple. I don't foresee a future issue where someone's gonna build 5 stories on top of it. I think this is a chance to repair something that's broken and a minimal increase request to accompany it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, Dave?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
Yes, oh, shit, it's kind of surprised me there.
1.4%, that's like under my.
All right, it's under your the litmus test for you. All right. Number 7, 1817 Mill Plain Road, petition of the Shapiros. They presented their own application. It's to construct a rear 2-story addition. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
All right, is there a second?
Jane seconds.
Thank you. Discussion.
Is radon a hardship? Has that been, is that a hardship?
I don't think radon's a hardship, but when you're required to have 43,000 square feet and you only have 9,000, I think that's a hardship, when they changed it after they built it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, but I'll-
you don't get too clear.
My own information is radon, is that a hardship? Is that something that's tied, I mean, we've, not me, but, I mean, this board has said too much sun is a hardship, but, you know, is radon a hardship?
Goes with the property.
I'll also put on the
I'm not,
record
not,
that it,
I don't think we're called to make that decision on this one, because I think we have a hardship.
I'll also put on the record that the applicant's worry about his public speaking was unfounded, quite well.
Okay, true. Bring it to a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Number 8, 1073 North Benson Road, Fairfield University. Attorney Fallon presented this to install rooftop HVAC equipment. Entertain a motion to approve.
Ryan moves.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Terry. Okay, is there anyone other than Brian gonna put motions before this board? Remember, we had Mr. Bernetti who made comments, Attorney Fallon responded to that, relative to the noise, issue. Discussion?
As a former graduate of Notre Dame and West Haven, I say let them sweat. However, I think what council provided in terms of, evidence of the low noise level from immediately across the street, I think it mitigates the concern.
Visually, you don't notice it, it's like telephone lines.
No.
They just kind of disappear.
Yeah.
You don't really.
I don't think they're actually even visible from the street.
Right, but it's like gutters and
Right.
telephone lines and wires, they just disappear.
And
Unless you're,
I'm sorry, but we're not the noise, police.
Right.
Also, I do agree, Central Catholic and Norwalk, let them sweat. I didn't have any air conditioning. So.
Yes.
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 Yes. Number 9, 56 Fairfield Beach Road, the Biggins, presented their application, to, construct a deck in addition. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Second? Second. Thank you, sir. All right, remember this one, and then we had, Mr. Bukowski, I believe it is, from 67 Carline Drive. He opposed, and then we had Mr. Titro and, Mr. Thomas, who were in support of this, who are also neighbors. So discussion?
I think their efforts for making up for required space by what FEMA does, in other words, their stairs, what they have to do in order to have a landing to get into the house, and the design of the project, I don't think they went overboard. I think they did something that was in keeping with what the neighborhood has become. I think what's there mitigates what they're trying to build.
Well, what they're saying is accurate, that if they didn't include the deck and the,
The
enclosure,
enclosure.
this application, they wouldn't need they wouldn't need a variance.
They would need a variance, right?
They would need lot coverage.
Lock, yeah,
They wouldn't need FAR.
right,
FAR.
right,
Yeah, still would need half of it.
right.
Mhm.
So that makes sense.
We take the whole, only for us, to discuss. And you can't parse it. That's just half. We can't sit there and grant one,
No, I know that.
the whole thing.
I know that, but.
So, I mean, and it is fairly small. And we do require, FEMA requires the raising of that, which takes up space. Any other discussion? All right, bring it to a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, number 10, 85 Northfield Road, the Ionellos. I hope I got it again. Presented and, for their own application to remove, rebuild, the garage sunroom and second floor above. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Terry got it.
Yeah.
All right, second?
Jane second.
Thank you, Jane. All right, discussion.
So they're reducing their lot coverage with this application. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
I think you are.
That's a good
It's a good thing. And, you know, reducing lot coverage when they are already almost at, not at 50%, but pretty darn close to being 50% of what they need anyway. So, bring it to vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Number 11, 101 Holtz Highway, the Regats, they presented their own application, to, build a detached one-car garage and shed dormer to the existing home. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Terry. Discussion?
I think as presented, the conditions, not only of the neighborhood, but of the lot and the street, warrant getting cars away from the street. It presents a reduction in risk,
That's your
if
hardship.
nothing else.
What is your hardship?
I got nothing else.
Any other discussion?
They're asking for 3.2% over the permitted FAR, which is still less than 10% of, it's within my comfort zone.
All right, let's bring it to a vote.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Yes. All right, number 12, 177 Nickel Street, petition of the crafts, Attorney Russo presented this. And, okay, there's a bunch of circles and boxes here, so I gotta make the motion correct. Entertain a motion to approve a variance of section 5.2.5 to increase the total floor area to 51.2%. That is the motion. I'll entertain a motion to approve that motion.
Yes.
He purposely started to drink water, so he could move. Thank you, Jane. Second?
Second.
And Jody, you're gonna need to
Yes.
change that, okay? Okay, discussion?
It's a FEMA project, so they're always needing to have a little bit extra for getting up the stairs.
A little extra lenience, love,
Yeah,
whatever you
yeah,
wanna call it?
yeah.
Okay, all right, bring to a vote?
Yes.
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 Yes. Number 13, 117 Colonial Drive, petition for the Kellys, Attorney Fallon presented this. They want to construct a pool house, so they need a lot coverage variance. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
Jane second.
Thank you, Jane. And discussion.
They're proposing only adding 1.25% to what's permitted. That's in my comfort zone.
And we are right, Attorney Fallon mentioned, we heard that number a lot today.
A lot.
All right?
Yes.
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 Yes. And number 14, 263 Katona Drive, Milford Fenway Realty, Attorney Gumpert presented this. They wanted to, go down to the foundation, first decking, whatever, and build a new, residence. Entertain a motion to approve.
Brian moves.
Terry got that. Is there a second?
Jane second.
Thank you, Jane. All right, discussion?
Can Mr. Decker explain why we're doing this?
I don't think he has to. I mean, if you look at
I
this,
don't think
if
it
you look
matters.
at this lot, I don't even, I had took geometry when I was sweating at Central Catholic.
Right.
I don't even know how to describe that
But I'm
shape
wondering
of that
why
lot.
it was approved and then not, taken away. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, why they're back a second time.
You can ask, it shouldn't, affect our,
The original. No, you had a public hearing, and you could have asked them then, but now you're in executive session, and there's no input. That would be my objection, just any comment at this point. That's a good point.
Good point, okay. Be careful of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, by objecting to certain things. Sometimes it can help, but, okay, fine.
Yes.
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 Yes. I don't care for objections during my executive session. Do you understand that?
I know you don't.
And
I don't want to have to go to court over this.
then just be mindful of, I don't like objections during my executive session. I think it's improper. If you don't like it, you can bring it up afterwards. We're closing this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.